Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS Podcast, everyone. I'm Steve Crane, along with Nate Hale this evening. We are not smoking yet, but if you can see our breath, it's because it's cold and it's Columbus, Ohio, and apparently 73, I think, % of the U.S., continental U.S., has snow or ice on the ground right now. We are part of that. And so our special guest we're going to bring on here momentarily. We've got a special bottle that Nate has brought with us, or with him tonight. It is, what is it, Nate?
It's Limestone Branch rye whiskey, and it was a state pick that they released in March of 2019, and they called it OH Rye-O.
OH Rye-O, I like it.
Yeah, and this particular bottle, Stephen Beam was at the store, and so my wife waited in line to pick up this bottle, and he autographed it, and she had him make it out to the podcast. So
nice.
It says Bourbon and BS Podcast. Keep up the BS, Stephen Beam.
Nice. I like it. I like it a lot. So thank you very much for doing that. That's awesome. Thank you, Jess, for standing in line and doing the heavy lifting for Nate. We've also got a couple of gentlemen on from Cedar Creek Cigars. We're going to bring them on momentarily, but I do want to quickly give a shout out to our sponsors, Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. That is going to be who normally provides our first cigars. But tonight, like I said, we have Cedar Creek Cigars. They have been generous enough to send us a couple cigars. There's San Andres Maduro, which is going to be the first cigar tonight, the featured cigar. Also the Cedar Creek Cigars Connecticut blend as well. We've got that. I think we might just do that second if you want to do that.
That's fine.
Yeah. Which means, so Altadis USA normally will sponsor the second cigar. I do have the Romeo Julieta Reserva Real Toro on the table as well, along with our third sponsor, BS Cigar Company. I've got the golds here for maybe later or my walk tomorrow morning, probably. So yeah, thank you guys very much. And Josh with Altadis for all the hard work and getting us sponsored on that as well with Altadis USA, who make Romeo Julieta, Monte Cristo, H. Upman, and countless others. And also patreon.com/Bourbon and BS Podcast. You guys are awesome. Help us keep this going and keep it flowing on Facebook and YouTube, and the audio and everything like that gets us on here every week, for better or worse. We're 3 years in right now.
Yep.
As Jake Sanders used to say after like episode 24 and 52 and every other episode, he's like, well, we made it.
Yeah. 50, 100.
So here we are 3 years later. It's changed a bit. So thank you guys very much for all the help, support, and hopefully enjoying it as well. So without further ado, I do want to bring on, we've got Josh and Bryce from Cedar Creek Cigars. Gentlemen, how are you?
Not too bad.
Doing pretty good. How are you guys?
We're doing great. We're doing great. Cold.
It's warm enough in the garage.
We're breathing in some propane heat, which is good. Usually helps the flow of the conversation along with the whiskey. I'm going to light up the Cedar Creek. Is it Cedar Creek Cigars, San Andres Maduro, or is that just like a mouthful? How do you normally say this?
It's a mouthful. San Andres Maduro from Cedar Creek.
Okay. Cedar Creek. Nice. All right. So you're sharing it right now, and I would encourage everyone out there to share it if you are watching it live so you can be a part of the conversation as well. I see a lot of people logging on right now, which is fantastic. Josh, Bryce, if you could give us a little bit before, and Nate, if you want to pour actually while they do this, that would be amazing. I'm going to light up if you guys could kind of give us a little bit of background of Cedar Creek in general. I mean, I know you guys are focusing on the Cedar Creek Cigars tonight with us. Hopefully next time, if we have a good time tonight, we get you on and we can try some of your spirits as well. I know you guys are doing that. So you're a distiller, a winery, a restaurant, a brewery, and a cigar manufacturer now.
Yep. Restaurant is soon to come here by the end of this year. But yeah, winery, brewery, distillery, and cigars.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So where are you guys at? Tell us a little bit about the history. Give us a little more than an elevator speech, but if you could just give us a little bit of like what you guys are about, what you guys do for the company, and just a little bit of background and history on everything.
All right. So 2010, my parents opened our winery up. So we're going on 11 years. I managed it for the first 5 years, met my wife. We decided to open up a brewery in 2015.
Okay.
Then my sister met her husband. They opened up a distillery in 2017. Josh and I moved into the same neighborhood, became good friends. We're always out on the boat and found out we enjoyed smoking cigars and said, hey, let's do this. So we started selling other brands, and then we were able to go through and get our own brand going.
So Cedar Creek Cigars is like a shop, if you will, a cigar shop on the premises or in the area?
On the premise, yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we've got, was it about 22 acres total?
Yeah, about 25 acres
25
overall.
acres total. And inside of the brewery, we opened up the 2 large humidors, about 4,000 humidors each. We started, like you said, we started selling just other brands and everything else made on the property. So we decided that since we make everything else, why not try to make our own brand of cigars? So we kind of dove into that and realized how difficult that was.
Yeah.
You know something about that, Steve.
Yeah. You were going to try to roll them there in Indiana, or are you going to buy something down in Honduras or Nicaragua?
I rolled them for a while when I was
really?
when I was working on different blends. I got pretty good at it. I always say it looked like Helen Keller rolled the cap, but everything else was pretty good.
It's tough part. Tough part.
Yeah, once we got to the point where people started liking them, and we realized it was a good idea to keep the consistency and quality that you want in a cigar, you really need to have, a team behind it. And that's when we kind of searched out the factory search, as I like to call it, trying to find somebody willing to, to take you on. So we ended up finding that. Now we're, producing down from Honduras from Tabacalera Cafe.
Oh, nice.
And once you get that big, you have to leave it up to the pros.
Yeah.
The people that are used to, rolling, a couple hundred cigars a day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I could roll, 10, 15, 20 a day. And then it got to where, when you realize how many they can roll and the consistency that they do, it's like, we're just going to.
Yeah. I remember years ago, I was at a cigar event at a shop in town, and they were actually having a contest. They had their master roller there at the store for this cigar brand. And they were actually showing people how to put the wrapper on a cigar. And so everyone that wanted to got to actually try it. And then you put your name on a band. And then at the end of the event, they actually would go through, and the rep and the master roller would go through and just eliminate them one by one until they were like, all right, here's who did the best job. And I ended up having the best rolled cigar there. And they ended up sending me a plaque. And
how many people were on this?
Over 20.
It's impressive.
Man, I never got a plaque. What the heck?
I have it hanging. I have it hanging on the wall in my basement. Yeah. It is not easy, because there was one guy. I don't know why they let him try this many times, but he cracked 3 wrappers trying to roll this cigar.
It's his first time.
I didn't crack one.
That's why you won.
It was my first time too. But no, I mean, he just kept pulling and stretching the leaf too much, and it would just keep tearing on him every single time.
The hard part from where we're at is like humidity changes so much. Like trying to get you pretty much have to have a room that is temperature and humidity controlled 24/7. If you don't have that, you can't keep up.
Yeah, I used to actually work for a cigar manufacturer. I was a regional sales rep for them, and I actually got to go down to the Dominican Republic and tour the field, the factory, and see the rollers and everything, and actually watch them do everything down there. And it was January, and it was over 80 degrees.
Oh.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, we're hoping
especially right now.
Yeah, we're hoping to get down there to Honduras this year.
Yeah, we kind of got screwed because when we started, it's almost been a year. So May is when we launched the line. So when we really kind of finalized the blends, it was right when all this had started. So we didn't get to go down and kind of do the whole experience like we really should have. It was literally just shipping things back and forth and a lot of Zoom, how everything's done during COVID. So
when did these actually hit the market? What we're smoking right now, the Cedar Creek San Andres?
May of last year.
Okay, May of last year. And you had been working on it for how long? When did you actually kick this off? Sorry, I was sharing the feed here.
Very fine. It was about 6 months before we started working with the master blender down in Honduras.
Okay.
And then it took about 2 months before we completely finalized everything and got it on the market.
And where did you learn, Josh? Right, you're the one everyone's seeing on the. I just want to kind of keep everyone together here. It works out with your caption underneath there.
Yes.
But where did you learn how to roll your own cigars? I know you said you had a passion for it and everything like that, but I mean, like, this isn't something that, like, I mean, Nate did it one time in a contest, which I also did. I came in second place out of 60 people. Just saying, there were more people there, but
It was.
You're still second best.
I am.
If you're not first, you're last. That's what
Sorry, my life. All right.
So I kind of have you ever had Amendola cigars?
No, I have not.
So Jeff Amendola, who owns the company, I pretty much just bugged the living daylights out of him, and he gave me a lot of tips and information and resources, and then a lot of it was just from asking people online, rollers that were doing videos and YouTube, just doing it myself, with a little bit of help from people that did know what they were doing. So
all right. Basically, you just kind of taught yourself more or less.
Yeah.
With a little bit of help. Yeah. All right.
Just wing it.
Just winging it. And then when you went to this product here, so we have the San Andres here. It's got a large band on it. You guys created everything. Is that correct? You work with a marketing company, or you guys just do this?
No, we worked with as a overseas company with the artwork and band. Originally with the band, we hadn't really decided to distribute out. We were just going to keep it in-house at first. And what we were going to do was we had the boxes designed as treasure trunks. Because everything in Cedar Creek, if you've seen pictures of it, is like kind of like rustic feel. And they were going to be, instead of traditional straight up and down, they were going to be in the box sideways. Because the name is so large, if we went smaller, then it was really hard to read. And the way they were going to be placed in that was, it was just better to have a band like that where you can read it coming straight out, right when you open the box. But then people smoked a few of them and they were like, these are really good. So they handed some out, and then we started having stores calling us, wanting us to, to get into those lounges and stuff. So then we kind of changed directions, because then we started into the distribution portion. So we kind of changed box styles and all that. But
yeah, are you more traditional now, like 20 count boxes, or what do you have now?
We do 10 count right now, but very traditional style box. It's just burnt on the outside and sealed, I think. Yeah.
You guys have one?
Box somewhere. If not, I have one down in my car. I can run and get it in a minute. But
that's all right. That's all right. So you started distributing them?
Yeah, we started doing it ourselves, just locally. And then once we started, partnered with a few other brands, boutiquesmoke.com. Then we started getting, across the country in different states, and kind of just started growing over the past 3-4 months, really.
Oh, that's fantastic. How many cigars are you like target? Do you guys know how many you're rolling and getting out there?
Yep.
Per year? I mean, I know it's been just about not even a year. So, I mean, are you guys projecting, or what's your current kind of supply looking like?
Current, we try to keep about 10,000 in Honduras in the aging room. We have a warehouse in Miami that we keep half the stock when we send up here, so a couple thousand here in Miami, and then about 1,000 to 1,500 in our humidor here at our local shop. Yeah.
So you've got that kind of supply chain going, but not a whole lot on hand at this point.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. And then you said you're on the premises. I watched the promo video you guys have on the website, right?
Yes.
And I did notice that the cigar part has not made it on that fancy promo video.
It looked like that video was shot pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID. I hope it was pre-COVID.
Yeah, the video was made right before we started doing the cigars. So it would have been that winter right before, whenever we started selling cigars, coming up on 2 years ago. It would have been January, February, whenever we did the video. So in that main room where everybody's sitting is where we have both the humidors set up.
I got you. And with this one, the San Andres, you said it's out of Honduras. It's kind of your now partner in a sense. You partnered with them. But what is, if you can, kind of give us the makeup of this? Obviously, a San Andres Maduro wrapper, correct? And it's made in Honduras. But Can you give us a little bit of breakdown of the blend, or is that proprietary?
I mean, the specifics of it are, but no, we can, so it's a Habanos binder. It's a 3-country blend. So it comes from, it's Mexico, San Andreas as the wrapper, Honduran binder, and then Nicaraguan fillers.
Okay.
You'll notice my favorite part, the one thing that I think sold me on it when we were working through the blends was, there's a leaf that we use in there with, once you get about a quarter of the way in, if you retrohale, you'll get almost like a floral note.
Okay.
Kind of like dried out flowers. So you get a lot of cocoa, a lot of kind of coffee, and a little bit of spice on it. But then you also get that floral sweetness. So it's not like a sugary sweet, but it gives you just enough of a sweetness in there to kind of kick on that cocoa.
I've noticed as I've gotten into it, it does start off, that you're, I guess, not traditional San Andreas, but it kind of has that brashness, but like just kind of like that wake you up, got a little bit of cocoa. But I have noticed that just a little bit in, I haven't quite gotten the floral note yet, but maybe that's what's softening it up already.
Yep. And it will, it's not a very, we didn't go crazy with the complexity. Like it's a very even smoke. The one thing we tried to do is, everybody pairs, and we have everything on site. They pair, with rums, whiskeys, all that. But our main thing was pairing with beer, because when Bryce and I started this, he makes the beer.
Yep.
And I kind of headed up, the cigars. So we wanted to tie those two things together. So with this San Andreas, we have a beer that is, it's a vanilla bean milk stout. And we use a lot of like cocoa and coffee beans for flavoring. So we tied those two things together as we were making this.
That sounds actually very delicious.
It is.
It is. All right.
I should have brought one of those cans over.
Yeah. So
again, with the beers, can they get that just at the brewery, or you guys distribute that as well?
So we distribute throughout Southern Indiana. As far as some package goes, a lot of the cans are going to be very similar. So this is just our Irish red. Most of them are going to have the same layout, just different name, different color. So Southern Indiana, we do have package. And then here around, our local hometown, Greenwood, Indianapolis, Bloomington, we have some tap lines as well.
Nice. What do you think of the cigar here?
It's good. I think it's got a nice balance to it. I think the Honduran binder kind of balances out some of the spice that you would typically get from that Nicaraguan filler. And then with that San Andreas wrapper, I just get a little bit of dryness to it, a dry texture on the palate.
Yeah.
It's not overwhelming dryness. Because you can still taste the cigar. I'd classify it as like a medium body cigar, nothing too strong. But it's, with it being a San Andreas and with the blend that you guys are using, I've actually recently had a couple other San Andreas cigars, and this one's actually just a little bit smoother and more well balanced than a couple of the other ones I've had recently.
Yeah, like I said, I think it definitely smooths out as you get into that first third of the cigar, like you had mentioned. And this is your baby.
The main thing. Oh yeah. This is this one is my flavor, like my palate. Everything that I love is this cigar. So, that smoothness, the difference you'll notice in ours in comparison to a lot of others, it's the fermentation process, and that was the main reason that we used Caffey's Tabacalera Caffey. They go through a little bit more intricate fermentation than what other companies do. So that's why you get that.
You can't explain that. How so?
They do a double fermentation process. So after everything in that cigar has been aged a minimum of 4 years and fermented, and then once it gets to Tabacalera Caffey, it is fermented a second time.
Oh, wow.
Which is what gives it really creamy, smooth. Doesn't have a lot of that bite. Like you said, you'll notice a little dryness, but it's not a bad dryness. And then the aroma coming from it is that that real smooth, creamy chocolate. I mean, it's the main part is the fermentation.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it definitely is. It's not like a lot of San Andres wrap, because the way they blend that, I feel like a lot of times you do get that dryness. Mine's completely gone. I haven't even sipped on the whiskey yet, which I'm about to do here because I wanted to give it a fair shot getting in there, not smoking your products before. I mean, it's definitely, you're okay. It's not the most complex, but it's already changed a little bit. So, I mean, you're already kind of, I don't want to say you're selling it short, but I mean, if you light up a cigar, you have that initial light up flavor profile hitting you and everything like that. And now I'm not even really a third in, about maybe a quarter in, and I've already had it switch up on me a little bit. Yeah. So I'd say there is actually a little bit of complexity as far as that goes as the smoking experience continues.
I get a little bit more of a dark chocolate or dark cocoa, because it's got just that little bit of bite that you get from a high percentage dark cocoa. Just a little bit of bite, almost bitterness, but not bitterness in a negative term. That's just the texture of that flavor when it hits your palate.
Yeah. That's nice.
And as we're pairing up,
go ahead.
I was going to say was that as you're pairing them with beers, like our thing was not overpowering our beers, or our spirits, having something that kind of complements them. So I think as we move forward, we'll definitely have, more blends that'll have more complexity and strength. But this is, we started out as these are going to be paired with our beers, and we wanted them to work alongside with them, not be, a singular item.
Yeah, you can branch out, now that you have these, defined blends, you can have that. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So kind of give us a breakdown of, the different beers, since we've got, Bryce on here as well. You've got the Irish Red you talked about. You have the, what was it, a coffee porter?
Vanilla bean milk stout.
Vanilla bean.
So we have the Irish Red vanilla bean milk stout. Milk stout.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a porter. We have a blood orange blonde. That's the #1 seller. We have a variety of IPAs, your session styles, your West Coast, your hazies. We do have a pretty decent Russian Imperial Stout we come out with every December. That also pairs well here with the San Andreas. So we have a pretty wide variety. Typically, we try to have 20 different lines on. So
20?
People come out and pretty much have it, any selection that you want. Yes. Yeah. I stay fairly busy brewing beer.
So I'm sorry to switch gears. I mean, we talked about the cigars a little bit. I mean, obviously, so where did you learn how to brew? Your basement, or do you have formal training?
Basement.
No, not even basement. I kind of did it back.
Your folks,
I didn't go to college.
What's that?
He said he didn't go to college.
Yeah,
joked he learned how to do it in college.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
It's overrated.
Yeah. No. So my parents, or at least my dad, basically we used to build custom homes. The economy dropped out in 2007 and 8. So my dad started making wine at home in the basement because he was bored, and that's how he got into the winemaking. As far as the beer, whenever I met my wife, we enjoyed going to other breweries, and we already had the winery. And, we would always get women coming in saying, oh, the husbands are at home. They prefer to drink beer. And it's like, well, I like beer. So let's try to figure this out. So I went through, got all the, right. So I went through, got all the licensing, the permits, started purchasing equipment, and I had never brewed a batch of beer before in my life. So once we had everything established, I then went and I started helping out at other breweries, I want to help, but, teach me in knowledge, pay me in knowledge. And so one of the local head brewers at another brewery, he goes, sure, start cleaning kegs. And so I did that for about a year, and just took in whatever knowledge I could. And, our first couple beers were not good whatsoever. But it's all learning experience. And basically it's just like baking cookies. You have the ingredients, the right equipment, and, basically a recipe. Anybody can do it. You just have to know what you're doing and how to use that equipment. So I kind of just learned from watching internet videos and kind of firsthand experience over a period of time.
Trial and error.
Yeah. trial and
All right.
error. Yes.
So far, let me get back up to speed here. So far, basically, your parents started, they were like, hey, let's do a winery, because you were doing these custom homes. So that is also a very specific trade. You kind of just like, you just like glance over these things, doing these like custom built homes, but, that wasn't, working out because of the economy. So, just started learning how to do wine. And then we just built a winery. And then, it's like, I like drinking beer. So why don't we become a brewery? And then it's like, well, I like cigars, so why don't we do that? Like that.
Well, I like how
it sounds so easy. And when I see this video and you have 25 acres and you have this major facility, I'm like, you make it sound a little easier than it is for most people. I'm glad you guys just kind of pull it off. You wake up, you're like, I like beer. Make some.
No, I liked how in the story earlier they're like, met my wife, and so we started doing the distillery, and then this person met their spouse, and they started doing brewery, and then and then they started doing this. Like every time someone finds their spouse, they start a new venture at the farm, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much. Now, the one thing that helps us, like with a lot of this, is we have the construction background, because if we didn't have that, we couldn't afford to do somebody to do anything that we've done. So as you watch that video, my dad and I built everything there on the property. So I mean, right there takes out a major cost, which helps us invest more in the equipment, make sure we have the proper everything.
Well, it's a lot of reused stuff, like
Right.
old barns. They tear down old barns and rebuild a lot of the stuff on property from old barns. That's
At least here in the county. Yeah.
So I think that the more trained part of this was the construction part, because if you based on Josh, your first batch of cigars, and they didn't really turn out all that well, and then you got Bryce over here, and he's talking about his first brews are like not really sellable. The construction part you guys had licked, so it's not like, I mean, like on the flip side, I feel like if I was like, hey, let's start a brewery, and I'm like, well, I'm just gonna erect my own building, and like the building would be basically, I think, on par with like your first beers and maybe your first cigars, which would not be good.
Right.
So at least you guys have the background on the fact that you can actually like, if we build it, they will come.
But your cigars would be on par with their construction.
I don't know. I got second place. Place.
But do you know how to blend a good cigar?
Blending, yes. I could have other people build it. But what I'm saying is that you save money by doing it yourself.
If you blend it, they will come.
I don't know about all that.
Oh yeah.
What about
if you blend it, they will come. I was going to say that.
What about the distillery here for you guys? I know that's
Say
not
that again?
your expertise, but I mean, was it kind of the same type of a thing? You have the winery, and you had the brewery was second. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and then my sister went through, and her husband opened up the distillery. So again, it was all repurposed buildings and everything. A lot of it, you can't legally do it as a hobby and then learn it. So that made it a little bit more difficult for them. But same thing. Right. But but once they opened and everything, people started coming in. Once they started moving product, they were able to go through, fine tune what they were doing, and come up with the selection that they have.
That's fantastic. What all spirits do you guys do? And I'm sorry for everyone listening. We got a little bit of a delay here, so that's why we're repeating ourselves a little bit. But what all spirits does Cedar Creek offer?
They have a variety of rums, moonshine, rye whiskey, and a straight bourbon.
Nice. And you said you have Josh. You have the straight bourbon on deck there.
Yep. This is switching to next. And this is it's a 4-year, 120 proof straight bourbon, and then we have the rye whiskey, which is a 4-year, 120 proof as well.
120.
Nice.
Yep.
It's got some warmth to it.
That's straight milk.
What's the mash bill on the bourbon, if you're allowed to say?
Can't.
Okay, that's fine. Fair enough.
They won't
that's
let
fine.
us.
They won't let us.
That's code. They don't even know.
No, they know. You
I'd
know.
say Our phone.
I don't know.
I say, yeah, our phones would go off here in a few minutes.
So what is, if I could ask, just because we're on this, rolling through it, I mean, what's the next wake up in bed on Saturday and you're like, you know what we should do next? Is there something coming as far as
the restaurant?
The restaurant. Okay, there you go.
Right.
There you go.
We have the building in town too.
Yeah. So yeah, the restaurant, which we're been in a year as far as waiting on permits for that, only because we don't have sewer. It's all septic based. But then here coming up, we're going to be purchasing a building in town to expand our brewery production. We're possibly going to be doing a cigar lounge as well and a tap room in that same building.
Good God, man.
Do you guys have a cigar lounge now on site, or do you have to smoke outside?
So with lovely ATC laws and everything,
it's a heavy side.
Yeah. So we have a specific room on site that we had approached the ATC saying, hey, we want this to be our smoke lounge. The problem is we do allow minors in the buildings and on the property. And the specific entrance for that room was from the inside. And since minors can go anywhere around the door, even though there could have been, two separate doors, they wanted an entrance to the outside. So it didn't quite work out for where we are. But, whenever we do concerts and all of that, people can come in, buy cigars, go outside, smoke them, listen to concerts and everything like that.
Did we talk about concerts?
Yeah, we didn't mention concerts.
Yeah, we didn't mention concerts.
So we want to have
bands. We haven't. Typically through the summer.
I kind of
absolutely. So in the summertime we have.
Are there any more like sisters or anyone else?
No.
I want to come to the holidays here.
Yeah. So in the summertime, right? Yeah, in the summertime we have what we call our Drink at the Creek concert series. Since we have beer, wine, and spirits, hey, let's go drink at the creek. So that's kind of our slogan. But we will go through. We'll have concerts almost every other weekend with 1,500 to 1,800 people at each concert, and it's basically just a big party.
Like I said,
yeah.
I'm trying to imagine how big their sign marquee is, because it's winery, brewery, distillery, cigar shop, restaurant, concert venue.
You just keep tacking them down.
Yeah, you just keep adding another board. You just keep adding another board under each one.
It's like now on the ground.
And then next to it, established this year.
Yeah, with the interstate coming through, the attraction sign will pretty much just be all Cedar Creek.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Oh my gosh, you guys seem to be enjoying life, which is always good. It's always good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So that's we have a question. The audience here in our studio / garage / my house. Not nearly as impressive as your multiple, signs. I just have a street address. But do you have lodging, like a bed and breakfast? Is that part of the? Am I giving away secrets? Is this now going to be something else that you're going to have lodging so people can do every facet of your thing and make a weekend / week out of it and not have to leave? Like a campgrounds, anything? Sleep in the car, something?
So that's one thing we've talked about. We don't know how we would work it into the property, only because as you pull up, our property is long and narrow, and my parents also live on the property. So the last thing they want are a bunch of drunk people smoking cigars, just wandering around their house.
It's at the
which,
state.
I understand.
Saying that, I mean, I don't know how big the house is, but.
Right. So there's lodging for my parents. Other than that, we are part of a. Right. We are part of a thing called Harvest Host. People traveling, the country. I want to say it's harvesthost.com, but basically, instead of going and staying at state parks, people can call us up and say, hey, do you have an opening? We typically will allow 2 campers. So they can park out in the parking lot, stay the night. I don't know what the fee is or anything, but It does allow people to stay on site, but we don't do that during our concert nights. So at the end of the night at the concert, about 11 o'clock, we'll go through. We make sure every car is off the property. So
that's quite a task, I'm sure. Every concert.
Yeah,
It
it's not
too bad.
Yeah.
Everyone gets along.
We installed big floodlights on the stage area, so we just flip those big floodlights on, and it blinds everybody, and they leave.
As soon as they're on, everybody out.
Yeah, scatter.
Like cockroaches. Turn the lights on there.
Yeah. Oh,
Same
what kind
concept.
of music do you guys typically have out there during your concert series?
Oh man.
So it's a lot of cover bands like AC/DC. We have like Thunderstruck. I think they come out of Nashville.
Yeah.
We had a Prince tribute band.
Nice.
Some country, a wide range of everything. We have a rock orchestras come.
Yeah. So this year we have a Journey tribute band. We saw them on a cruise ship probably about 5 years ago, and my mom looked at my dad and I and said, "We need to have them at our place." So they're out of Nashville, Tennessee. They're phenomenal. So we have them. We have an AC/DC. We have like a hip hop tribute. We have a Jimmy Buffett tribute. That's going to be fun. Let's see what else.
It's a reggae band that night too. So
yeah, we have a reggae band opener and then a Jimmy Buffett tribute. Henry Lee Summer will be at our place. Queen tribute, Chicago tribute.
Ginny DeVoe.
So a bit of everything.
Yeah, CCR. We have a symphony orchestra. Kenny Chesney tribute. Pearl Jam. Michael Jackson tribute, and then the Flying Toasters will be there as well. So
yes,
that's
everything. That's literally everything.
Wide variety.
We got another question from the studio audience. Is there an amusement park coming in at some point? Or you mean like rides there and back? You mean roller coasters.
Like a Ferris wheel.
I mean, a zip line would be cool.
Zip line would be
I don't know if insurance would appreciate that too much. You'd have to.
Axe throwing is the new thing too. You've seen that, right? The axe throwing thing.
That's been brought up. Maintenance on that is a pain.
Get a bunch of drunk people drinking bourbon and throwing axes. Just
or
wine.
Or wine.
Yeah.
Wine.
Yeah.
It's more sophisticated.
I would be more worried about the wine people.
Jeez.
No, what you do with that is you have a system set up that scans IDs. And so anytime someone comes there and drinks, they have to scan their IDs. That way, if they go to throw axes, you have to scan your ID again. And if you've already checked in that day drinking, you're not allowed to go throw axes. You got to throw axes first.
Just a waiver.
We're going to write that down.
Yeah, we'll write that down.
Because I actually remember seeing a story several years ago. There was a gun range that had a bar. And that's what they would do. Like you had to scan your ID to go into either side.
No.
And once you went into the bar, you could not go to the gun range that day. So you had to do it in the right order.
Here's my thing about axe throwing, right? I had some friends just went to go axe throw and they're like videotaping this whole thing, right? And there's drinking. And it reminds me of, I've never been, so I don't know where people are standing while you are throwing axes, but behind them. Okay, good. Because if you've been to a bowling alley and you've had people that don't know how to bowl and they let go as they do the backswing, I'm wondering, because I see these people, they literally are just like kind of doing this, and they're like, and then all of a sudden they swing it back. And I feel like at a certain point, especially like in the summertime, humidity and everything on that wood, I feel like you're going to like let go. I don't know.
Hands get a little slippery.
Yeah, I know you guys are knocking out over there.
Yeah.
Don't stand behind.
Yeah.
Safety goggles or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. The safety goggles are going to protect you from an axe.
I don't know how to do it next.
High level safety, like really highly rated. I don't know.
Like a metal rim.
Get a welder's helmet, maybe.
All right. So before, like we talked about the San Andres blend here a little bit. We haven't lit into the Connecticut, but was it first, or did you guys work on both of these at the same time? As far as the cigars,
we did both. Both at the same time, yeah.
Okay. And then talk to us a little bit about the Connecticut blend, if you would, please.
So that Connecticut, it's an Ecuador Connecticut wrapper. I think the main thing that set that one apart is I used a Corojo binder on it.
From where?
I've always said Honduras.
Okay.
Yep. Honduran Corojo, and then it's Dominican and Nicaraguan fillers.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it's a little different. It has I think I got lit into one time by saying it's not your average Connecticut because everybody says that. It doesn't have that bite. Like I was not a Connecticut fan. I never really had a Connecticut that I absolutely loved, and so it was really hard to come up with this one because I kept smoking the different blends we were working on. Like it's the same thing I've always tasted. That kind of tangy bitterness to the leaf, and then just kind of that dull nutty coffee flavor. So I with what we used, that binder just gave it a little bit of oomph behind it. That really does, I think, separate it from most others. So
I like to think it gives it just a slight spice, not much, but very slight spice. And with this one too, like, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think that sometimes you get that with a Corojo, whether it be from Honduras or from Nicaragua. I think you're going to get a little bit of that spice from a Corojo. You said it's in the binder?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. The Nicaragua was almost too much.
I can see that.
Because we did use it was too much spice. So you'll get that, I think in a Habano, that one that we probably will be working on towards this summer, will have like a Corojo binder or something in it that gives it that extra little punch. But the Honduran Corojo had just enough to where it didn't like overpower you right up front. Stayed really even throughout the entire smoke and just kind of complemented that wrapper and filler. Didn't add too much into it.
I'm excited for that one because I love Ecuadorian Connecticut. I like it more than U.S. Connecticut. And so like I can think of a couple cigars right off the top of my head that I just absolutely love their Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper leaf. Yeah. And one's coming out of Dominican, one's coming out of Honduras. So I'd be very curious to smoke this later on and see how it is.
We're going to do that. Oh,
I know we are.
So you have you're shooting for 3 blends on the cigars. Obviously, you guys are talking about the distillery. You've got your beers. Do you guys do any like special edition or small batches or anything like limited release type products where you are doing that? Obviously just at your location instead of maybe necessarily distributing it. But I mean, you're doing these one-time releases or annual releases. I know that's the big trend, especially in the distillery world, the beer world. You have like those small batches where some of these, at least here, especially like in Ohio, a lot of our breweries will do these like kind of small batch things. We've had several distilleries on here locally that'll do the same thing. Like we just had, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Watershed. They've been great friends to the podcast, and they had like a 10-year anniversary bottle where they're doing that, but it's very limited. And, the smaller distillers here, they'll do those. And it's just you have to pick it up basically at their place. And there's usually a line out the door. They're gone within a day or two. I don't know. Do you do that? Is that something in the works?
Yeah. So on the wine side, we go through and we will do a bourbon barrel aged Pinot Noir. That one we typically will release almost every quarter. So about every 3 months, we'll release that. We'll have it for, a couple of weeks and then it'll be sold out. Beer wise, we do a Russian Imperial Stout that we released on the winter solstice of every year. We call it the Darkest Achievement. It's our darkest, heaviest beer. It's a 15% Russian Imperial Stout aged in bourbon barrels. It's aged for minimum 10 months. So actually last week I spent all week just brewing that beer. So here in a month it'll go in bourbon barrels. And then throughout the year with that, we started playing with some New England style milkshakes. Those tend to be a little bit more popular. They're not so much your slushy beers, but they're a little bit on the fruitier side, a little bit on the lighter IPA side. And as far as the distillery, I mean, any of their bourbon is all single barrel. Same with the rye whiskey. Yeah. So a lot of that, you can come in and I don't know, you can probably do barrel by barrel. I don't make it over to the distillery much, but yeah, so they'll do stuff like that as well.
Our plan with the that Russian Imperial, that comes out is using a very similar blend in the San Andreas that you guys are enjoying right now. Doing like a small batch release of about the same time. So we'll change the fillers. It'll have a little more kick to it, but it'll be very, very similar to that. But we'll do kind of like a small batch release of both, so that beer and the cigars at the same time.
And when's that? When are you planning on doing that?
Hopefully, we'll do it at the end of this year. We're branching into different sizes of these two current blends here this spring, and we'll kind of ride that through the summer, and then start working on more blends after that.
Dude, that's fantastic.
What's the price point on these two cigars, as well as your bourbon and rye?
So the bourbon and rye, the rye is $45 a bottle. The bourbon is $55. The San Andreas is around 11, depending on where you get it from. Sometimes it's like 11.70. And then the Connecticut is in between $9 and $10, depending on who has it. But in-house, it's $9 and $11.
Now, do you only do it in what I assume is a Toro, about a 6x50? Is that the only size you do on these cigars, or you do more of the classic sizes?
No, right now there's the only two sizes. So this spring we're going to do. We'll have two sizes in each one of those. So we'll do my plan is to have a 6x60 in the San Andreas, and then in the Connecticut we'll go down to like a short Robusto or maybe even a Lonsdale. So we're kind of going in that direction with both of those.
I like that Lonsdale.
Yeah, especially with that Ecuadorian Connecticut.
Yeah. All right, if you could, I hate to take away time from you guys, but Nate, if you could just talk a little bit about this Ohio pick, if that's all right with you guys.
Yeah, go for it.
So this is coming out of Limestone Branch.
Mm-hmm.
For those unfamiliar with Limestone Branch, it is currently the only distillery that's owned by the Beam family, because the whole, Jim Beam, all that corporation was bought by Centauri, probably a little more than a decade ago. And so Stephen Beam and James Paul Beam Jr. started Limestone Branch. I think they opened up in 2011, so it's been 10 years now that they opened it. And they did this rye specifically for the state of Ohio. It's 100% malted rye, aged, and the bottom of the label just has all the information you could want out of a bottle. So 100% malted rye. They give you the barrel number. It entered the barrel at 50.8% and is bottled at 47%.
Okay.
Aged for 19 months, and the char level is a number 3 char.
Okay.
So tons of information. And then on the back, they also give tasting notes on the back of it. Limestone Branch is owned by Luxco, which actually just got purchased by MGP. So that's why I also brought on. So Limestone Branch really only does 4 products. They do a gin, they do a bourbon, which is going to be the Yellowstone that I have here. They also do, I think, a Yellowstone barrel proof, I think it is. And then they do this minor case rye. And this is a straight rye, 45%, 100% barley, or 100% malted rye, and sherry cask finish. So our second bottle is actually going to be this minor case rye, since we're drinking this particular rye from them. So, yeah, this is the one that my wife waited in line. She dropped me off at work, waited in line. She got to the store about 7:30. She goes, "What time does this start?" I'm like, "Well, legally they can't start selling it in Ohio until 9 o'clock in the morning." She goes, "I'm second person in line." So
saint of a woman.
Yeah. She wishes she brought a book for that. But yeah, she waited in line for an hour and a half. And thankfully the store allowed people to wait in line inside the store and not wait outside in March.
What did you do for her?
That's 2 years ago. I don't remember. I'm sure I did something.
It's a terrible answer.
Yeah,
That's an absolute terrible answer.
There were only 4 liquor agencies in the state of Ohio that this was being released through, and Stephen Beam was at the one here in Columbus, and so he was there autographing bottles, and my wife had it made out to the podcast. It's only a pint. It's a 375 ml bottle, so half a fifth, and I believe it was $37 for that half fifth.
It's a nice price for that, though. For a special pick like that.
What do you think about it? As you take another drink.
So I think as I got into it, it's almost similar in characteristic as far as that first sip, kind of like when you first light the cigar. It's a little bit, it's a lot on the palate, right? It kind of hits you hard. As I've gotten into it, it's smoothed out. I get kind of surprisingly. You said this is 100%.
100% rye, 100% malted rye.
Started out that way for me as far as your typical what I would think. A lot more spice and everything like that. Right now, I've got it's smoothed out quite a bit. It's definitely a smoother, sweeter, more vanilla.
On the nose, I get this hay note on the nose.
Yeah.
I get this nice.
It's got a little sweetness.
I get this nice caramel sweetness on the palate. Very thick feel to it on the palate. Very oily. And then this heavy oak finish with a little bit of sweetness to it on the finish, but a lot of oak on the finish.
I like what it says on the bottle, if I could here.
Yeah.
Because I read it and now I'm trying to get those notes out of my head. Do you guys ever get that when you guys write your stuff? You know what I mean? Like, you guys obviously created it, but when you read someone else's description, if it's a little different than what you're getting, then you take another sip or you smoke your cigar and you're like, okay, I didn't get that, but now I can't get it out of my head.
Right.
I was really bad with that with cigars. Like, I have to see I have to have it in my head. Like, I have a hard time pulling those flavors out. I have to kind of look what those notes are in order to kind of enjoy them.
Yeah, same thing on beer. I mean, I can't pick it out, but then it's like an aha moment once I see what it is.
Yeah.
And see, a lot of times I tend to shy away from that because I've had some times where someone will tell a cigar or someone read somewhere that this cigar tastes like whatever, this whiskey tastes like whatever, and then that person tries it. They don't taste those, so they think maybe it's not for them, or maybe they don't know what they're doing. Well, it could be.
I have
been doing it for 20 years. You have a notebook?
Yeah, this little book, and whenever I smoke a cigar, like when I'm thinking about new blends, or if I'm just I try a bunch of different cigars to try to pick up different things, and I write them all down in this little book, pre and then after. So okay. I see what I draw from it, and then I'll go and research that cigar, and then see if I was right or what I missed, and go back in and try to figure it out.
Smart though.
Yeah, but I will say it's not always about being right or wrong. I think it's something that you may not have picked up on, like you guys mentioned. It's something that, what you think, you're like, I can't really place it. And then someone else says it. Like this one, they have toasted marshmallow as one of the tasting notes. And when I read that, that's exactly what I'm tasting. Like, it's got that vanilla, but then it's also got that, like, this toasted marshmallow. I don't know if you're getting that when you read that or you hear that, but I get a little bit of that kind of like right around the campfire type thing.
Maybe if the marshmallow was over the fire a little bit too long.
Yeah, that's toasted.
No, toasted, I think, like brown, not black.
He's thinking charred.
No,
like
right. Everyone's got their own way of doing their malo on the fire. Okay. Everyone's got their own preference. If you try to tell someone else how to do it, and that always happens, you guys know that when you're around the campfire or whatever, the bonfire, everyone always says, no, you got to leave it on longer. You take it off. You left it on too long. You're like, I'm not making this for you. That's why.
Yeah. No, on the back of the bottle, they actually say on the nose, sweet grass and toffee. Like I said, I get hay, which is probably sweet grass, but me being around horses as much as I am, hay resonates with me more. And then palate brings allspice, toasted marshmallow, and seasoned oak. I definitely get some spice. I don't know that I would have pegged it as allspice. But
I don't know what allspice is.
Yeah. But there's definitely a spice on the palate, but it's not overwhelming.
No.
Like
especially as you get into it.
Yeah, it's just kind of a middle of the road level of spice, just enough to let you know it's there, but not enough to necessarily overpower the sweetness. And then it says finished with seasoned oak and hints of vanilla. I definitely get the oak on the finish.
I definitely get the vanilla. I mean, as you get into it, like I said, it smooths out a lot, you know. So
yeah,
so that's one that should be smoked with like a candela.
You think because of the
if
hay?
You get a lot of hay on that, it might pair nice with the candela, but
it depends on the candela. I will say I've had a lot of candelas, and it really depends on the candela.
We've got a lot of heavy smoking here tonight.
That's fine.
Oh, I'm fine with it. I mean, I can see it on the camera though. Look at that.
I do that every week.
All right, so this is the part of part one where we're going to do this, and it's a little different. We're not necessarily drinking the same thing, but this is where we kind of rate it. And I love having you guys on here because you guys can rate what you're drinking as well. But this is where we do out of 10. You take the drink, right? So we're doing different things. So this is a little bit different for some of the listeners. But if you guys want to kind of describe what you are drinking, and then, you know, give that a rating out of 10. Then the cigar. We're all smoking the same cigar. Is that correct? You guys are both smoking the San Andres. Is that? Yeah. Okay. Yep. And then the pairing. So we'll do it with the pairing of what we have here, and then you guys can do it on how you think the San Andres Cedar Creek cigar pairs with what you are sipping on as well. And we'll start with you guys as the guests of honor. And I also want to hear how you guys rate your own cigar because it's always fun.
We start. Oh, this is the embarrassing part because I haven't switched over to bourbon yet. But I am drinking Swiss Miss hot chocolate.
All right, Swiss Miss. Is this store bought? Is this instant? Are we doing a packet thing, or what are we doing here? Is there marshmallows in there?
I was going to ask with or without marshmallows.
Yeah. Oh, with marshmallows.
Toasted marshmallows.
I'm not an animal.
No, you're a gentleman, and that's how we drink it. I understand.
So yeah, packeted Swiss Miss hot chocolate with marshmallows, and then the San Andreas. So should I rate the cocoa first?
Yeah, because we normally do the whiskey first. So the Swiss Miss hot cocoa with mini marshmallows, instant. Did you microwave? You use milk? Well, this is important. Was it water or milk?
Oh, so here's where it gets tricky. So it's half milk, half water because I'm on a diet. I'm watching my calorie intake. So it's
light hot chocolate.
Yes. I'm gonna
rate. So now we know what the blend is.
Yes. I don't know if it was Honduran cocoa or if it was U.S. cocoa, but
store bought.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10.
6.
Oh, it's from Switzerland. Duh. I'm gonna give it a 6 because the marshmallows melted too fast and they disappeared before I could even get into it. So I'm gonna say that's like a design flaw.
That's fair.
And then the cigar, I got to give it like a 9.7.
9.7. How about the pairing?
Oh, I mean, cocoa and cocoa. It doesn't get any better.
I love it. That's fantastic. First time on this podcast, 3 years into it, that we've had a review on store-bought instant hot cocoa.
Yeah.
May not be the last.
It's
actually
a first for a lot of things on this
podcast.
podcast.
I was going to say the 3 year, you got to have something special on there.
I love it. All right, Bryce, how about you?
I was drinking our Cedar Creek Irish Red. I like it because it has a nice malt note to it, and then we use the local honey, which gives it a sweeter finish. As far as the rating, I would give it probably a 9.5. Nice. We took silver with it at our state fair here 2 years ago, so nice. I don't want to play it up, but it's good. It's a good beer.
Nothing wrong with second place.
Yeah. Well, the first place wasn't even from the state, so
state fair.
Yeah. It was, I think, California. It's open to anybody.
Garbage.
That's bullshit.
And then the cigar again with the San Andreas.
Better give it a 10.
I'll give it a 9.5 as well. It's a nice robust cigar, but it doesn't pack too much of a punch. As far as the pairing, I like it because again, it doesn't have that heavy roast. So to me, it helps pull out some of the malt notes within the beer. And then it has that smoother, sweeter finish to it, which pairs well with the finish of the Irish Red.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I want to try all these things, including the cocoa with the water milk. Was it 2% milk, or what were you using there?
I ran out of 2%, so I had to use my kids' vitamin D.
Okay.
Good for the bones.
I thought because of the
heavy.
calorie count, he was going to say skim milk.
No. He went D. How about you, Nate? Jesus Christ.
So on the whiskey, I'm going to give this whiskey a 9.5. I really enjoy this. Even from the first sip, like there was just something that stood out about this whiskey and the flavor. And I doubt me aging it in my basement for the last 2 years did anything.
Well, it's been sealed, right?
Yeah, it's been sealed, so it's not really aging.
It didn't. Right.
But no, just the flavor profile. It's not overwhelming with the spice, and still got a nice sweetness to it. So yeah, 9.5. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I can't wait to try it against the Minor Case, which is their regularly produced rye. So that'll be part 2.
Yeah.
On the Cedar Creek San Andreas, I'm going to give it a 9. I think it's got a lot of flavor, nice medium body, not an overwhelmingly complex cigar. There is a little bit of change in there, as Josh has alluded to, but it's got a good flavor to it. A little bit of dryness, but I think with the pairing, I think this rye actually brings out a little bit more flavor from the cigar. And so I'm actually going to bump. So with the cigar being a 9, I bump it up because of the pairing to a 9.5.
Cool. Thank you.
Strong. It's very strong. Nate's usually pretty harsh on his ratings. He has a nickname of the Russian judge from about the 80s. So you should be very, very pleased with that. With the whiskey, I think this is something that for a state pick, they knocked it out of the park. This is very cool. This is a very cool product that they did. I'm surprised the price being, you said under 40 for the
$37 for a half fifth.
Yeah. And what's the proof on it again?
94 proof is what it was bottled at.
Okay.
It went into the barrel at 101.6 and was bottled at 94.
Okay.
After 19 months.
Wow. I think it was a great pick. I give it, as far as ryes go, because again, you have to look at it, I think, with the rye being 100%, I'd say 8.5. And that's not a bad rating. I think it's a fantastic pick. It's hard to do. Drinking the rye, at first I was like, okay, it's a little bit kind of like what we talked about earlier. What I said earlier is a little bit harsh at first, it's a little bit, smack in the palate. So I didn't care for that. But as I've had a little bit, like a glass and a half, if you will, because I kind of topped off the first pour for this part of it. And so 8.5 to 9, I think it's just something that it's really softened out, and it's not what I typically would expect from a rye. So it kind of surprises me a little bit being 100%. So definitely a great state pick for something that we have in Ohio. I wish this was something that was readily available. I will say that. Yeah. But being exclusive, to a one-time deal, I don't think should affect the rating, which sometimes I feel like it gets that. Not necessarily you necessarily, Nate, but the cigar, I'm going to give it a 9 because I think, what's the price point of this cigar?
He said 11. 11 for the San Andreas, 9 for the Connecticut.
Okay.
At their location. So over here, you maybe a little bit more with the tobacco tax, but I think our tobacco tax is less than Indiana. Indiana, I think, is 24%, and we have a 53-cent cap.
When you guys distribute this cigar to other states, do you do it yourself, or does it come through your partnership so there is not necessarily a double tax?
Yeah, it goes through the partnership.
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. So yeah, it would be probably around $11 here as well, I'd imagine. Yeah, 9. I mean, this is a great San Andreas. This is not what I expected at all. This is something that, with this cigar being something of a boutique, if you will, you never know what to expect. And I said it earlier when we were talking about it. I think that this is something that when I first lit it up, I got to be honest, I was like, okay, this is a boutique San Andreas cigar. But as I got into it, it balanced out. It got that, you said, like the dry floral notes. I didn't get as much of the floral myself, but I'm also breathing in propane heat and secondhand smoke right now, so that might be affecting it as well. But I'll say that I was happy to smoke it originally before sipping on this beautiful rye whiskey that we have, and it's just turned into. I'm about halfway through it. I had to take the band off because it is a very large band that you guys put on there. I think Nate, you took off the band before you started, right?
Not on purpose. When I took the cigar out of the cellophane, the band stayed in the cellophane.
Okay. I just glanced over. But I think this is a very good cigar. I think this is something that, again, being a 9, I think, that's something that it's unique. And I think that, talking to you guys, that's kind of the goal there, right? You want to do something different. You talked about the fermentation. So I think when you're talking to the people behind the brand or the blend, I think it kind of gives you a little bit more insight. So you may actually dive a little bit more into it. If I was smoking this blind, when I lit it up, I probably would have been like, you know what, it's okay. And I got into it like, wait, this is getting even better and better and better. And so far it has tonight. And I will say the construction,
oh yeah,
it's got your typical San Andres. Mine doesn't have much of a sheen to it. It's not an oily wrapper.
Nope.
It's what I expect from a San Andres Mexican wrapper. But the construction has been very good. I haven't had to touch it up a whole lot.
I haven't touched mine up at all or relit.
I've touched it up a little bit, just doing, the talking and everything like that. But if you're just hanging out and smoking, and I mean, you see, Josh, you got yours. If you can hold it like that burn right there, you've got a nice razor sharp all the way around. I mean, your construction level is top notch, I think, on this, which is really, really nice. And the draw is effortless, but it's not airy. So yeah, definitely a 9. For the pairing, 9. I mean, I think it goes well. I think first lit them up. When I lit this up, I took my first sip. I'm like, this is a lot, but it is also what? It's 23 degrees here, so
a lot warmer than it was this morning.
A lot warmer than it was this morning, single digits. But yeah, so 9. I think this is something that's good. This is something I wouldn't do this pairing in August on my patio. I would be sweating and miserable and just want to go inside and lay down, I think, at that point. Personally.
What was I know there was one person that commented earlier because they tuned in a little bit late. What was the manufacturer that you're using for this cigar? What was the name of that manufacturer?
Tabacalera Café.
Tabacalera Café?
Yep.
Okay.
Kafie.
And they have their own line of cigars as well available, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're wonderful.
Yeah, they're fantastic. So you guys knocked it out of the park. I really, really want to come out and spend a summer with you guys, not just a weekend. I think I'm gonna want to just spend a summer. So if your parents have a spare bedroom in that house,
so I'll tell you, which I'll remind you here in a couple months. What we're planning on doing is some other people in the cigar industry. So Bryce and I live literally right across the street from the winery and brewery and all that, and we live on a lake. So we're gonna have a bunch of you guys, which you guys are going to be invited. We're going to do like a day out on the lake, get some of the beers and bourbons and cigars, and make sure it's like a concert weekend. And we'll find a place, a couch for you guys to crash on.
You bring some Cedar Creek cigars, we'll bring some BS cigars.
There we go.
Yes, I'm in.
We can do it.
All right.
You got to ask the owner at the Tinder Box if you can take that much time off.
I'm in
to spend the summer down there.
It's called a sabbatical. I do want to thank, as we round out here, let me throw them up on the screen here. Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS Podcast. Please check that out. It's been fantastic. You guys have been great support. Helps us go, continue to grow and go every week. And we're 3 years into it. And I feel like we're getting, you guys reached out to us, which I love about that. You guys are looking to expand and get in front of people. We're not the biggest podcast. I'm surprised of all the love that we're getting from local viewers. And then we have a lot of people from like Ryan Jones. He's out in the Illinois area. He's a great loyal listener. We've got
Ian in Tennessee.
Ray, he's saying it's called market research. Thank you, Ray. I'll have you talk to Brian since you've known him a long time. He's in Vietnam. He listens every week in the morning out there. So it's been fantastic to have that support. Patreon.com/Bourbon BS Podcast. There's different tiers you guys can support. And then also Tinder Box at Easton here in Columbus, Ohio, Altadis USA and BS Cigar Company. all kind of working together to keep this going from the very, very core. So we appreciate all that support. And guys, you know, you guys listening, share, like, review. If you don't like it, throw up some shit on the comment feed. That's always fun to deal with as well. So anything you guys want to throw at us, we appreciate it. Any suggestions you have, we'd be happy to have. Ian says, so let me throw this up there for you guys to see.
Yeah, this is a great comment.
So Cedar Creek BS Drunken Concert and Bass Tournament. What's the prize?
Oh,
We're gonna have to figure that out.
Why not?
People showing up.
Oh,
So
That's
yeah,
actually-
guys, thank you very much. Part one. If you guys are listening, hopefully we'll keep these guys on for a little bit. If they have to go, they can go. But we're going to go into part two. We're going to talk about consistency and plowing ahead in part two. So if you're listening on the audio, click on part two. Make sure you leave a like, a review, and all that good stuff. Subscribe. And guys, thank you so much. Cheers to you guys. You guys are killing it. I love it. I can't wait to get more of your products. Cheers, guys.
cheers.
Now we're on intermission right now.
Okay.
cool.
You guys wanna stick around. You got to go. It's up to you guys completely. You're not going to offend anyone.
9 o'clock. I probably should go, actually.
All right.
I'm not at my house, so that means I need to go too.
Yeah, get the hell out.
That's fair. Guys, thank you so much. This is
Yeah,
amazing.
that was fun.
No, we do need to figure out. I mean, obviously, we'll have you guys come down anytime. We'll throw on a party for you guys. But if in the meantime we need to get figure out how to get you guys some of the beer and some of the spirits. So
Absolutely.
shipping's kind of a bitch, but
We can make it work. Throw in some macaroni boxes. They won't know.
It'll be fine.
That's a big
Noise
macaroni
maker.
box for a bottle of whiskey.
Say it's toiletries.
It's like the Sam's Club size
I
macaroni.
ship. I shipped to a guy in Canada, a former customer. He lived in the area, but he's back up in Canada. So he orders 100 BS cigars at a time, and it's always awkward because he doesn't want to pay customs on it. So he's like, just put something else on there. So every time I go in there, it's like I'm dealing with some kid, working at the UPS store. Always super, super nice. First time I went in there, and I'm like, he's like, so what is it? I'm like, it's apparel. So how do you spell that? I'm like, all right. And then he's like, so how many are in there? Like, what's the value of it? I'm like, I don't know, like $800. He's like, how many? And I'm just like, not even thinking. I'm like, because there's 5 bundles. I'm like, 5? He's like, oh, it won't take apparel. What is it? I was like, shirts. And he's like, so there's 5 shirts worth $800. I'm like, they're custom.
Just print the label.
Never had an issue. Never had an issue. Every time. Yeah.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
One of a kind.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, one of a kind. The collector's items. Fuck yourself.
They're vintage.
There are 5 shirts, and there's only one of each.
That's exactly right.
You
I
can't
hand
find
painted
it
it.
anywhere else.
You don't know who I am?
You
Guys, thank you very much. We won't keep you. We're going to get into part 2. Hopefully we'll have you guys back on, or if you guys are in the area anytime, let us know.
Yeah.
We can schedule you on, and we can have you in the garage and just have a good time.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Thank you guys. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, be
Bye.
careful.
All right, Dan, you're leaving? Sean, you want to be on part 2?
Sure.
Oh,
Sure.
do we need to get him a mic?
I need to get a mic. We need to get him a chair as well. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
That means I gotta
No, we're good right now.
slide over.
Scoot over. We're gonna do a quick adjustment. Anyone listening? Ian says I'm gonna ship you all a t-shirt cannon. I love that. Love that. Kyle, good seeing you, bro.
He wants to ship us a t-shirt cannon, hopefully one powerful enough to launch a t-shirt to Ian in Tennessee. 3X.
Mike, will you? Let me set up real quick. Anyone stay tuned?
And I do want to throw out there. So last night I had posted on the community page asking if there were bottles that people would like us to feature and review. Thank you for everyone who contributed to that. I'll wait till Steve gets back and tell him about all the numbers and stuff, because I did some other stuff per some people's request for the podcast. So wait till Steve's back. See you, Dan. Thank you. Well, hurry up and get home so that way you can watch part 2.
I'll turn both those towards us if you want. You guys warm enough over here?
Yeah, you can turn that other one towards us. Just turn it this way, because we actually found that if they're both on this side, like, it actually heats the garage a little bit better versus one being over there against the outside wall. And by outside wall, I mean garage door. And Sean, if you want to, can you actually scoot the table back just a little bit? So for those watching, you're going to see a little bit of jumble in the camera. That should be good. We'll wait till Steve sits back down and that should be good. Is your glass empty?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Because since you're now guest for part 2,
Ooh.
I'm going to pour you some of this. See, the guests get the good stuff.
Christmas came early. Thanks, man.
Let me know what you think of that. Oh, thank you, Josh, who was just on the podcast. Josh actually commented, for those of you that were asking where you can get these cigars, you can get them online at boutiquesmoke.com. So thank you, Josh, for that additional information. So hopefully some of our listeners will support them as well, since you guys support us so much. Yes, now that Steve's back in the garage, I was telling the listeners that are still on, I was thanking them for commenting and contributing with the bottles that we should feature, and I kind of had a running list, and I just added some of those to the list I have. So as of right now, I think there's about 27 bottles that I have on that list of stuff we have not featured before that we could potentially do in the future. There was one person that was like, "Hey, can you guys do this bottle?" I'm like, "That's $150 bottle. Like, it might be a little bit much." And it's a bottle that's a little harder to find. I know you would like it. It's the Jack Daniel's Sinatra.
We'll take any donations.
Yeah, we will take donations. If anyone wants to chip in to contribute to us buying a $150 bottle for the podcast, that'd be great. But there was another person. There was another person that had commented on my post last night about that. So I actually keep a spreadsheet that has all the bottles that we have featured, all the cigars that we have featured, and the topics that we've covered over the course of 100, before tonight, 155 episodes. During some of my downtime today at work, I also went through and put into that spreadsheet
He did.
I put into that spreadsheet the featured guests that we had on each week.
Yes.
So 155 episodes worth. I have a spreadsheet of who is the featured guest on as well. We got to figure out a way to potentially put, because I know someone wanted us to publish that, so that way they could actually go back and see like who was on for what episode and what were we discussing, and stuff like, instead of just filtering through like what cigars or what bourbons we have.
I will say one
reviewed.
way you can do that is if you go on like the podcast listener, like an iTunes or whatever else, if you just scroll through there, you can always see that. It's not a spreadsheet, but that's one way that I do it, is see the guests where I just scroll through the previous episodes.
Yeah, I did that. Some of the earlier ones, I had actually listened to the intro of the podcast to figure out who the special guest was. Thankfully, Steve is really good about putting that information into the details of the podcast when it posts the audio, like on iTunes or whatever. Yeah, so there is a spreadsheet. Maybe we can post it on the community page. I don't know, and just update it every now and then.
Yeah, we can figure that out. For sure.
Yeah, so like who was on? When I say who was on, that doesn't count the hosts unless like you, Jake, me, and Dustin. Like
special guests.
Yeah, unless we were the only ones on the podcast. It just has who the guest was for that episode. And then if they were with a cigar company, if they were with a distillery, or some of the other people that had their own business, I also put what business they were associated with as well.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's get started here. Josh did put it up there, boutiquesmoke.com.
Yeah, I mentioned that.
Okay, that's fantastic. All right, let's get started here. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS Podcast, everyone. This is episode 156, part 2. We just finished up part 1. For those that have not listened to episode 156.1, we had Josh and Bryce from Cedar Creek Cigars. They also are a part of the brewery, and they also have on the premises a winery, a distillery, soon to be a restaurant, concert series, everything. It's a
humidors.
It's a compound of fun.
Yeah, I know. It's adult daycare.
It's fantastic. Check that out. We smoked. I'm still smoking. I think Nate is as well.
Yep. I'm almost finished with it.
Cedar Creek Cigars, San Andres Maduro. We rated that one. We also were drinking the Limestone Branch Rye, Ohio pick. From which year? 2020?
My wife bought this March of 2019.
Wow.
It's
been that long.
I wanted, because this was a special bottle and it was made out to the podcast, I was hoping to be able to bring it on for an anniversary episode. I was originally hoping to bring it on last year for the 2-year anniversary. I had a work engagement, unfortunately, but that's when Spencer Lappin and Amy Schertzinger from McClellan's Pub was on and brought the Weller Foolproof barrel that she had done.
I think I still have that bottle in the basement.
Is it empty?
Wait, I can't say that.
Is it?
Let's not talk about
I
it.
retract my question. It's a damn good bottle.
Forgot where I was. I want to thank our sponsors, Tinder Box at Easton, Altadis USA, and BS Cigar Company. Typically, we have Tinder Box at Easton here in Columbus, Ohio, supply our first cigar, but we were fortunate enough to have Cedar Creek Cigars help us out with that and send us those and reach out to us. And we were just very, very gracious. And thank you guys for being a part of part 1 and sending us these cigars. I'm going to light up the Connecticut next. And then also Altadis, we have the Romeo Julieta, the Reserva Real on the table. If we get to that, I doubt we will during the podcast. But now we have Sean joining us. Sean, introduce yourself.
I am Sean Wilkinson. I am a fan of the podcast. I am a groupie, and I come here every week. No, I'm kidding. I come here quite often because I live right down the street from Steve, so it is very convenient. But love being here, love being a part of it, whether I'm on the show or I'm in the audience. It's a treat.
Part of the Bourbon and BS community page as well.
Yep.
A good friend of the community. And then Nate Hale obviously is with me as well. I do want to thank patreon.com, which I think you are a part of that still, Sean, correct?
Yes.
Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS Podcast. You have your t-shirt. We are working on.
I have a t-shirt on too.
That's good. That's good. No one wants to see it right now.
Okay.
I got the BS t-shirt on underneath. When the world hands you some BS, light it up.
That's right.
That's right.
That was a pre-order shirt. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in. We are going to get into kind of beyond the BS here. So 3 years in, this is where we're kicking around ideas and consistency. When we first started this podcast, Jake Sanders and I, back 3 years ago, so much has changed, obviously, in his life, my life, and everyone else involved in this, and just the podcast itself. This is something that when we first started, we had some people that were doing a pretty successful podcast, and they just said the biggest key to doing it is consistency. is just keep putting out content, because, and I saw that with some podcasts that I'd listened to, and I was ready to listen to the next week and it wasn't there. Or if they were doing like daily ones, or they were doing like once a month or every other month type thing, it wasn't there. And it's not necessarily you have to do it, but if you want to keep people engaged, what I have learned is that you have to put the content out there.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that, with like social media recently. It's like you have people that just watch it and they just, they're like Facebook or Instagram stalkers, if you will. They're not really doing a whole lot, but they're on there all the time. When you go on your Facebook page, you see them like they're on, like available to chat. They're always there. But then you look at their page and they haven't posted anything in the last like 6 months, and that's fine. But if you're trying to get content out there, you want to get it consistently out there. Some people may not even follow it as much anymore. They may not listen every week. They might not look at your posts. They might even be annoyed by it at some point. But if you stop posting, I've learned that, like, even with like my Instagram stories, I'll post stuff for a while, and if I stop, like, I'll have people, like, I've been doing these walks, for the last 2-3 months now, and I didn't post any pictures one day because I was on the phone, and so I had like 2 people message me. I'm like, did you not do your walk today? I'm like, no, I did. I just didn't post pictures. So it's people you don't expect that you get that, it's kind of cool that way, in my opinion, that you have people reaching out to you to check in on you if you're putting things out there, because your consistency does impact people, not just yourself and your daily habits or routines, your weekly habits and routines, but you do get these people out there, especially in the social media world, or if you see people, just exercise, diet, things like that. They haven't seen you in a while, and you either look great or you look like hell, but they may not say you look like hell, but you like, they're like, you all right? How's everything going? They don't say like, hey, how's everything going? They're like, how's everything going?
Yeah. It's more from a concerning.
Yeah. And so I think the consistency is kind of what we want to talk about, and plowing ahead is the other aspect of this. But, Nate, you and I kind of talked about this. What's your take on the topic at hand? Because, you were asking me some questions where my head was, and I kind of told you, but I mean, like, what are you getting into this tonight with?
Well, when you talk about consistency, I think the hardest part that people have when it comes to that is getting started.
Okay.
So like let's take fitness, working out, for example. Like, you can't just sit there and work out for a couple days and expect that you're going to just keep it going. Like with just about anything, it takes about 3 weeks of doing it on a consistent basis before you actually start building consistency. Because in that first 3 weeks, like, if you don't keep it going, it's very, very easy to fall off. It's very easy to stop doing what you're doing. But typically, once you've been doing something for 3 weeks, it becomes part of your routine. It becomes a habit, and it becomes easier to keep going. It's just that initial getting it started that a lot of people, I think, struggle with.
Yeah, there's a that saying is like, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great.
I think too, the one thing that with that in particular with fitness is people go out and they go full on, and they don't start at a good pace. Like, somebody will go to the gym and they'll start benching things they could bench or lift whatever they could lift when they were 10 years younger. And then all of a sudden it's like next day or the second or third day, you're in so much pain. You're like, and then all of a sudden it's easier to fall back off.
Because you're in so much pain, you take a day off.
Right.
And then it becomes easy to take the next day off. And sometimes you just got to work through those growing pains. That's the reason you're sore, is because you're growing. And sometimes it's hard to work through those and keep going. Or, for example, a day like today, when I got up this morning, it was 1 degree outside, and that's a hard day to take a walk. I have to admit, I actually didn't take a walk. Instead, I plowed the driveway. So I shoveled snow in my driveway for about 50 minutes, and that's a workout.
I did deadlifts for the first time in about ever. That's what it felt like.
You'll feel that.
But I did not take a walk. Yeah, so I look at, it's funny to do all that. Like let's stick with something that's really easy to follow, right? So the fitness thing. I also, nutrition's another one that's kind of hand in hand with that. I find it's once you get started, right? Again, you don't have to be, you don't have to be great to get started. You have to get started to be great. It is something that I have with the fitness thing, with the walking, with the nutrition and all that stuff. What I've noticed is once you get into it, you talk about 3 weeks. Yeah, to create a habit, you have to do it for 3 weeks, is what they say, 21 days.
Yep.
If I skip the gym, if I skip a meal, or if I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do a cheat meal. No, it's gonna be a cheat day. You know what? Tomorrow, all right, that was one of the things in the last year or two that I lost myself, along with a lot of people, with what was going on, is that my day-to-day stuff was thrown off. So being a creature of habit, it seemed to be working for me up until about this time, a little bit after last year. Then everything kind of changed, right? So the gym's closed, and then, you can't just do your normal routine anymore. I noticed that, like when you get in a relationship sometimes, not talking about mine, it's like, but when you get in a relationship sometimes, you got your own thing going, how you eat, how you act, how you sleep and all that stuff. And then you add someone else into it. Now it changes. So now you get this to this point where you miss a day. Like, okay, I'll get back to it. But anyone that does fitness, anyone that eats a certain regimen, or they sleep a certain way, once something, that wrench gets thrown into it, whether it's invited or not, it doesn't take 3 weeks to get off your schedule or to get off your habit. It takes days. Like you can skip. For me, if I skip the gym for 3 days in a row, I'm losing my shit. I'm not mentally there. I don't necessarily have the drive to go back to the gym, and now I have to start back over all over again.
Do you feel like
I have a cheat weekend? You know what I mean? I'm eating like you're on vacation, or you do all that stuff. When you get back to it, it's like, all right, so I ate clean, or I did all this stuff for weeks or months or even years, and all of a sudden I take 3 days and I just eat whatever the hell I want because of what's going on. Or like I had a cheat meal, and then it's like my significant other or my friend's like, hey, do you want to hit up this new restaurant? And you're like, all right, yeah, I'll go there. And you're like, well, do they have my normal diet food? No, so I'll just eat something else. Now all of a sudden your body quickly, I feel like, falls.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very slippery slope as soon as you do that. It's much different than getting into the habit. It's easy to fall out of that habit or lifestyle. The consistency can be quickly changed and just completely turn your world upside down.
How quickly consistency can become inconsistency?
You can say that. That. I think that, yeah, inconsistency. So that, all right, so now we're going to play with the words a little bit. I think that with consistency, it's what is it? What is the goal? I think with consistency and plowing ahead, it's what is the goal at hand? Because when you're dealing with whatever it might be, let's stay on the easy topics of nutrition and diet, right? If your goal is to get into better health, we all know that you have to at least get started, like you said, Nate, and then you have to keep going. If you go to the gym, that was the biggest thing, growing up and in my 20s and 30s, that I'd have friends that were either overweight or out of shape or whatever it might be. They're too skinny, they want to get bigger. They're too big, they want to get skinnier, whatever it might be. Now you have these people that are like, they bust ass, like Sean was saying, they bust ass for like, they go just hard, and they're going like 6 days a week. And they're asking you, what do you do? And you tell them, and you're like, I wouldn't go 6 days a week working that hard because you're going to burn yourself out. And they're like, no, I got this. I'm going to do it. And then 2 weeks later, how's it going? Well, I took a few days off. You're slipping, you're slipping down that slope already.
It's kind of like
and then it's like, how's it been going? Well, I haven't worked out in the last 4 months.
It's kind of like the joke we tell, or that people say every single year. What's the busiest time of the year at gyms? January. What's the slowest time of year at gyms? February.
Yeah.
I think one of the things too with working out and that I've learned over the years is that you don't go to the gym and you get halfway through it and go, this sucks, or get done with like, I'm dreading tomorrow already. You want to go and leave something there to make you want to come back. I think that's the big thing too. It's where I've done that. I did CrossFit for a year. Oh my God. It was great and I did well, but there was days where I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm coming back tomorrow.
I think another part of the fitness or the diet nutrition aspect of it is if people do it for, let's say, a month, if they don't see in the mirror the results that they thought they would have, they think, oh, this isn't working.
And on the flip side,
I'm just gonna give up.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. But on the flip side of that, there are people that start seeing results, and then their consistency falls off.
Right.
Ah.
Oh, I look better. I'll have a cheat meal since I see a difference. Like I've dropped 5 pounds.
I was working out 5 days a week, but now that I'm seeing results, man, maybe I'll do 3.
Yeah.
Or 2. And take a week off.
I have a certain situation where it kind of helps me. I actually get paid to work out. I work at Amazon, and now I'm working for, I'm walking 20 miles a day, and now I moved to a bigger facility where it handles larger products. So I'm handling 200-300 pound products from pushing and pulling and moving, but I'm getting paid for it. So if you're looking for a job and you want to lose some weight and you got held by accountability, come to Amazon.
The other one I did for a decade, I didn't actually do the frontline work, but if you want to move furniture for a living, that's another one. Yeah. Amazon or move furniture. Yep. It's a very humbling experience.
I have an uncle that the company he works for, they would actually set up and install office furniture.
Yeah.
So like
modular furniture, man.
Moving all the furniture and desks in and getting everything set up in a workplace. And he started doing that in his 50s. And he does not look like he did when he was in Operation Desert Storm in the Marine Corps.
No, certainly not. You never do, years later. The consistency, let's talk about this. So what is it, something that you guys find that you have done that has brought you some success? Because I feel like consistency is one of the big keys to success, is that if you continue on doing what you're doing, if you have good practices, and one, you have to find what those good practices are, because I think that is something that is missed. But when you find those best practices, what is it that has brought you happiness, success? It can be personal, it can be work related, it can be health related. But what is it that you've seen that has brought you success? And then I have a follow-up question to that as well.
I guess for me, one of the biggest consistencies, which took a monkey wrench last year, was the time that I get up in the morning.
Okay.
Because I'm one of those people. I have my alarm set at the same time, Monday through Friday, and like I know when I get up. I know when we're supposed to leave the house in order for me to be able to get to the office at a particular time. And, part of that getting to the office is that 2.5 mile walk that I would do, which is one of the reasons why, I started last summer. I started doing some walks around my neighborhood to kind of make up for that. Didn't do it long enough for it to become a habit.
Right.
Started it back up again, but recently. But no, like I'm one of those people, like I hate being late. I'd rather be early. My wife, on the other hand, like my wife jokes with me sometimes. She knows she'll get to work on time if I have to go into the office.
Okay.
Because I'm going to be the one that makes sure she's up, because I'm like, no, we got to leave the house at this time. You better be up and ready to go at that time. And so that's one of the ways, like, my consistency with getting up, getting ready, and out the door actually helps her in her consistency and holding her accountable to do the same thing. So like if I take a week off from work, like she'll sleep in a little bit later. She'll leave the house a little bit later. She goes to work a little bit later. She ends up getting off a little bit later.
Yeah. Because
she doesn't like to get up at that time. So she needs someone else to kind of hold her accountable. So that's one of the things that I'm good at, is getting up at that specific time every single day. May not always go to bed at the time I need to in order to get up like that.
But part of it.
That's part of it. Like, if you're getting up at 5:30 in the morning, probably not the best idea to stay up till 1 o'clock.
Yep.
But if you don't have to get up till 8, staying up till 1 o'clock, maybe not such a bad deal.
Right.
And so that's probably going to be one of the hardest things when my company actually starts allowing us to go back in the office, is instead of getting up for a while there, I was getting up like 5 minutes before I would start my day.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to have to go back to, getting up at 5:30 or a little bit earlier once the office opens up. So me taking those walks made me get up earlier.
Yeah.
So it'll help with that transition instead of all of a sudden going from wake up at 8 o'clock to the next week. Now I got to wake up at 5:30.
Yeah.
Like, and they sometimes tell parents to do that with kids that are in grade school, coming off the summer break. Like, don't wait until the week that your kids have to go back to school to start having them go to bed on time and get up at a certain time. Like, gradually work that in, get them to bed earlier and get them up earlier. So that way it's not such a drastic change to their system.
As a teenager that I have at home right now, it's easier said than done now.
It is. And it's something that I think that as you get older, that's one of those things, though, if something changes. And I feel like we were all faced with that this last year, 2020, right? So out of your control in a lot of ways, you didn't have the consistency anymore. Now everything's just completely, FUBAR basically, right? Yes. So it's just completely gone, and everyone handled it differently. Yeah. Let's talk. I mean, again, I think it's really easy for me. Ray says he's stopped listening. Well, I appreciate that, Ray. Thank you very much. I think that some people were able to continue their regiment. They continued walking. They continued doing that. Sean was very generous, and he gave me some of those exercise bands that he had extra because I didn't know what to do, because I had been so consistent in my fitness side of it that I didn't know what to do when the gym's closed. Everyone's like, oh, you should be fine. I'm like, I have 2 dumbbells, 40-pound dumbbells, and that's it. I don't have a home gym. And I knew that I would lose my stuff. Now, at the time, I was living with someone that was also into fitness as well at that point. And there were 2 different avenues. And I'm not talking bad about anyone here. I'd be very, very clear here if anyone's listening that is involved in this. I looked at it as I had to survive. I had to do something that I'd survive mental clarity. And I talked to a lot of different people that went through this same thing, that they just couldn't do it. And I know that when the gyms open back up, at first I was like, all right, it's going to be a couple weeks, maybe a month. Good. By month 2, it was like, this isn't the same. It was nice for a change of pace, but now this is my new normal, and I didn't like it. And so my fitness, my diet, everything kind of fell off a little bit. And I know that a lot of people did that as well. And when the gyms opened back up, when some of the restaurants started opening back up, I wasn't as good as I was before. I had to retrain myself, and it took me months. Mm-hmm. Because by doing that, by taking away one of my core consistencies that was a kind of fuel to the core of the fire, it went away. And then therefore my core started changing a little bit. So some of my other habits of consistency went away. The sleep, the like you said with Nate, you said that, you didn't have to get up necessarily as early to go into the office and do your walk and all that stuff. So now all of a sudden it's like, that's not a big deal. But before you know it, the body chemistry, everything in you is changing, and you may not realize it soon enough. It's the same thing as when you start eating differently, you start eating worse or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. You don't realize it until a month or 2 later that you look in the mirror and you're like, well, why do I look like this? Why do I feel like this? Why am I always tired? Why do I want to sleep in? I never wanted to sleep in before. Why do I want to stay up late? I never wanted to stay up late because I was so tired from doing my normal thing. All of these things are intertwined, and I got to tell you that people do not necessarily realize that if you lose that consistency at a certain part of what you may or may not consider your core, you may not realize that will affect every other aspect of your mental capacity,
absolutely,
your physical side, and everything, emotions, everything. Your body chemistry will completely go off kilter. And therefore, it's harder to get back into it. It's harder to do the other things that were fueled by those actions, whether it be waking up, exercising, eating a certain way. Big one now is social interaction.
Yep.
I mean, goddamn, like how many people were zoomed out within a month or 2?
Mm-hmm.
When it first started, it was like, hey, I got a Zoom call with my family or my friends and all this stuff. Hey, we're doing FaceTime groups and all this stuff. And it was like a month or 2 later, like, hey, do you want to get on the the FaceTime? You want to get on the Zoom? You're like, no. I did that with the cigar stuff, trying to keep everything going with that. It's like, first it was like, hey, we're going to do it for business. And it's like, hey, you guys want to get together, smoke a cigar on online. And like, yeah, cool. Yeah, no problem. Weeks later, it's like, hey, you want to get on this? No, I don't want to. No.
Yeah,
I'm busy. Like, doing what?
There were too many nights that we were staying up at our house, at our respective houses until 2 a.m. drinking whiskey. And it's like, I can't do this 3 days a week.
I know.
You got the podcast one night and then doing the room chats 2 nights a week on top of that. It's like, gosh, this is killing me. But you kind of touch on an interesting point. Like, there's a lot of things where like you start developing this consistency in one aspect and you don't realize how many other aspects of your life that will affect.
Absolutely. That's what, yeah.
Because it'll carry over into other things. And then it also, and we talked about this a little bit last night, the impact of negative consistency.
This is why I don't talk about it the night before. I told Nate that.
Yeah.
The reason I didn't talk to Jake about the notes that I had in my head before the podcast is so that they don't use it.
Right. Well,
go ahead, Nate. No, hang on.
No, go ahead.
I called him out last night. I said that last night. But go ahead.
No, I mean, because
sorry. And then Sean wants to say something.
we've kind of danced around that. You get into a habit of when you talk about consistency, people always initially they think about just the positive. Like if I start working out consistently, if I start eating right consistently, or if whatever they're doing, if I start doing this consistently, like whenever they start doing something, they're doing it with a purpose.
Yes.
Like there's a goal that they have in mind. What happens if all of a sudden you just stop doing something? Like then it becomes consistently you're not doing it.
Okay. Sean, what do you got?
Now, I was just going to share last year kind of with you. I was working out hard for a few months.
Yep.
COVID hit. I was doing well at home. By summertime, I started falling off that wagon. But I think what you guys were talking about earlier, the consistency, once that ended, it affected my relationship with my family.
Bingo.
The way, my wife was like, you go in the bedroom and watch TV and you just zone out.
Yep.
And it's easy to fall into that trap. And even now, like now that I've, the job where I do, where I can stay fit by doing it, kind of have to do it now. It affects our family life at home now, where I can come home and I have more energy and I can spend more time with my kid and my wife, and we go walk the dogs, and we do a lot more things. On a side note, Ray, you are the most consistent dude that I know by tuning in every week on this show. So props to you, brother.
Well, he's retared, so it's not like he has a whole
So what?
lot
He's
to
a
do.
consistent bastard from Vietnam that watches our show every week.
He is a bastard. Ray, you're awesome.
We love you, brother.
So you're absolutely right. The negative consistency, right? So there is something that I'll throw on the table here as well. There's 2 aspects of it. I'm not saying you have to be boring, right? So, Ray, you brought up Ray. He had said something that, speaking from his experience, is that consistency easily becomes complacency in business. Now, this is a fine line that I think that you walk, whether it be business or if you're dealing with the personal life. This year was tough, like you said, Sean. Is that you got to the point where even your wife was calling you out. Maybe Molly was as well. Is that, it's like you're in a rut. You just go into the bedroom, you're watching TV. You don't have the drive. You don't have the necessary things that we were talking. I was, bringing up as far as these things that were your core necessarily that drove other aspects of it. Mm-hmm. Energy level is a big aspect of all of this stuff. Doing these things, whether it be exercise or getting out, socializing, having your, if you're in a relationship, you have your together time, you have to have your alone time, or you have to have, at least if your alone time is with other people, your social outlets and all of that stuff. We were forced in a sense to just be holed up in a lot of ways. So now all of a sudden you don't have the control. So now you have to come up with your new ways to have your alone time. And sometimes they will. And I think that's with any relationship. Sometimes if you're spending, too much time. I know, Sean, you and I talked about this, is that, you were coming over to the garage and we were smoking cigars, and all of a sudden, Teresa was just saying, like, I feel like you're going over there a lot more than you're smoking more cigars.
Yeah.
You're drinking more.
Yeah.
You don't realize it necessarily because you're enjoying it.
Yep.
You don't realize that you're having this new norm or whatever it might be.
Especially in COVID, man, you find anything you can to make yourself happy in a given situation. So
there are a lot of different escapes, and I think that's something that happens, whether it be COVID related, whether it be this 2020 thing that we've talked about. We've talked into the ground. Everyone's talked into the ground, which is still happening in 2021. But I think that this is something that you find your escapes. It's a survival thing, and sometimes you push people away. I'll introduce this side of it to the conversation is that I think that, to Ray's point, consistency easily becomes complacency. And that is something that happens in your everyday life because you just have your routine. You stop doing those things. When you first start dating someone, this is a great example, or you have your first impression at a job, you're trying to impress them, right? So you're not necessarily, you're your best self.
Yep.
You are projecting your best self. So you take your core that you walked into this new job, this new relationship, and you're doing everything that you think that is you, but you amp it up. You know what I mean? Because there's another party involved now, whether it be the business, the company that hired you, your customers, your significant other, or hope to be your significant other through the dating process, right? You're putting that all out there, but eventually you kind of come back to that 0 point, if you will. You come back to the balance of who you are, and you run out of energy, or everyday life comes into it. So now all of a sudden you're in that maybe complacency part of it. And we all know a lot of relationships and a lot of jobs. You're just like, I've been at this job for 5 years, 7 years, whatever it might be. And it's just boring. It's the same thing over and over again. Now I'm used to it. It's not exciting anymore. Mm-hmm. Consistency doesn't necessarily always have to be exciting. Now, complacency, though, like Ray said, it could be a problem as well. We talk about balance a lot on this podcast. We talk about the fact that if you're dealing with something, you have to be able to address it. I will say this, though, in my opinion, I am of the opinion that consistency can be, again, the core to the success of your job, your life, your relationship, whatever it might be. But at a certain point, you have to take a step back, as always, and look around you and realize, is this the best practices for my life, for my relationship, for my job? The flip side of that, I'll throw it out there, is that if you have someone that is constantly looking for, and if you're that person, that inconsistency is, or constant change is the way to happiness, that is I'm of the opinion that is a short-term goal, that is a short-term outlook, that if you're not happy because of complacency, that you just need to switch things up. You can't consistently, again, this is me, I'm saying you cannot consistently switch things up and never have true consistency other than, just changing constantly. It's I think it's somewhat of an age thing. I think there's responsibilities that come into play that you may not just be able to drop things at a whim. You can't just change things constantly. You have to have some sense of a core. And I, again, am of the opinion that your core cannot be sporadic behavior. It cannot be constant change.
Yeah.
It can be if it works for you that you're constantly doing that. But if you want to build something, there has to be some consistency.
I think it just it's a starting point. When you want to make a change, it's a starting point, and then you got to just go from there, and take that road and go as far as you can with it. And if you build consistency on it, great. And if it's starting to take you off that path, and try something different that'll get you back on that path of consistency.
True. I think that sometimes you start something. So I've been doing those walks and everything like that, and I don't know if I'm going to do them forever, all that stuff. But it's affected people. I've noticed, Nate, you've been taking them again, and a handful of other people of the Bourbon and BS community have been doing that. There was some that I was posting a picture of me smiling, and I had Denise Drosha, who used to be a corporate friend of mine at 2 Men in a Truck. Right. So we're Facebook friends and everything like that. We've always thought highly of each other. And even when I was let go from 2 Men in a Truck, she reached out to me and she said, all right, I got 3 different franchises that might be interested in you. I don't know exactly what happened, but I have, there was just this level of respect on what we knew of each other and what she knew of me. I did a couple days where I didn't take that picture of me smiling on the trail. And she literally commented to me and said, Where's the picture of you?
Hmm.
Like she was enjoying that. She even posted up, and she's in Michigan, right? So she even posted a couple pictures where she was out with the dog and taking walks and everything like that. Again, I think some of these things, it affects people you don't realize it affects. But sometimes when you start that new habit, you have to know what the goal is. It's not just to do what you're doing, right? Because you'll figure it out. Sometimes it serves a purpose in your life or other people's lives that then all of a sudden it's like, now I've done this. Now you guys take it from here.
Yeah. I noticed that as a parent too, like when you start to do something like in that situation or whatever it is in a positive manner or goal or whatever, your child or, even your brother or sister will imitate what you're doing. So, especially when you have those little kids' eyes on you as a parent, it's good that you like start something like that in a positive way. And they see that, man, the kids see everything. So I think that's always you're doing it and all these, great communities watching you and they're following along, but man, when you're at home and just, it has an impact, like you said, on more than just yourself. And I think that's great. So
it does.
Kids are like sponges too.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
Whatever they see, they're going to soak up, and that's what they're going to start doing. Like it only takes you one time to curse in the car with the kid in the background before that kid starts saying that same curse where you're like, where they pick that up?
Goddamn right.
My daughter was younger. She was looking for her little whoopee silky thing and she couldn't find it. She was pissing me off. And she's like, where is it? And under my breath, I go, you fucking find it. And she goes, no, you fucking find it. And I'm like, I didn't respond. I just
told you.
Yeah. She kept repeating it. And I did not want to react. I went around the room, the corner started laughing hysterically, but I did not want her to see my reaction because I knew that she would just keep saying, you fucking find it. So I was like, all right, I'll stop.
Now, how often does she drop the F-bomb at the house?
Not too often. Every once in a while she may, but not when she's with her friends on a Skype call or something, they'll think they're cool and I'll catch them and they'll stop. But
no, my parents made sure I did not develop that habit so long as I was staying in the house, as long as I was living in the house. Oh, I remember the first time I said a curse word.
What'd you say?
Shit. Oh, I got my ass beat. I was under a blanket and got my ass beat.
Oh man.
Used to, if I said shoot or dang, that was a problem when I was young. Now, I've now retrained my mom. Literally when I'm talking on the phone, I can just, say fuck, shit, all that stuff. And it's fucking ridiculous. And she, at first, she's like, I wish you wouldn't talk like that. Now she's like, yeah, I know it is ridiculous.
She's become accustomed to it.
Haven't we all?
It's interesting when your parents start talking to you and they start throwing the F-bomb, like, it's fucking bullshit. And you're like, oh my God, my dad said fucking.
Yeah.
He's talking to me about it.
What I've found too, though, some of these things like the walks that I've been taking, right? And I've tried to, so when your world gets rocked, I've been fired, I've been broken up with. I've had things happen to me that are out of my control, if you will, or that's how I perceive it. So sometimes when I think things are going well, or if I'm just being consistent and I'm just rolling through it, I think this year was something with my personal relationship. I think with my previous job, that was something that I was struggling with, just the everyday, and you just keep rolling with it. And sometimes your consistent habits or your actions, you don't realize that you have lost your core self. And I got to admit that I've been there. And that's something that sometimes when the boat gets rocked, hopefully you can catch it before it capsizes, that you can have that. And I'm not, again, just talking me specifically, but I see that it's how you react to it. So sometimes your normal consistent behavior or your habits or your practices, what you think is the best part of it, you don't necessarily have to question everything that you're doing, but can you improve? Have you lost certain aspects of it? I think in this last 12 months, that has happened to a lot of people. Job, relationship, Sean, you touched on the relationship, your job changed out of your control. But how do you react to it? So do you create a new best practice? Do you create these things like the walks? Do you get back in the gym? Do you change the way you're eating? Do you actually get off your ass and do something about it? Or do you just wallow and just let yourself realize that things are out of control, and then that's it? I got nothing. I got nothing to do.
I'm going to be honest, man. There was times last year where I did do that, and because it's easy to fall back into those, order Grubhub online and get a pizza or whatever you want and sit there and binge on Netflix and just kind of lose yourself. And, there's a few weeks, maybe a month where I would do that off and on. But it gets to a point where you're like, when your family finally, or whomever finally kind of calls you on it, you're like, shit, you're right. Cause it's so easy to fall into that. And, I'm grateful that I have the job that I have now, because it is, I worked from home before and it was easy. I sat on my bed and ate chips and drank pop and worked, and it was easy. But now it's like, I got to be held accountable for what I do. And, I'm blessed to have that,
You are,
but, it's the best. Honestly, it's the best thing I've probably had done to me in years, to just be able to have that opportunity and just, I don't know. It's been good.
No, you do know. You do know.
Yeah, you're right. I know. I should have said that. Sorry.
No, I think it's a self-realization. I think this is something that there's a time that you can you reflect on some things that are out of your control, like we all did this last year, right? I mean, obviously, we just rolled with the things that were happening with COVID, with some of the things in the United States and elsewhere, with political movements, things like that. You can do it with your head on straight. You can do it with other people in mind. That was something that I struggled with a little bit, was do you get just bullheaded and you roll through it? You give your opinion all the time, or do you just roll back and just say, okay, I'm gonna deal with this? The people I'm interacting. I had the same conversation when we first opened back up about COVID. When we first had people walking in, walking out, carrying out, as far as the business went. With the cigar business, the retail is new face of retail. And I had the same conversation over and over again. I come home and have the same conversation. And it was something that it beats you up a little bit. It's something that you gotta have your wits about you at all times, so that you do, if you are the one consistent thing. There are times that even being the consistent person, whether it be friends, family, job, or whatever, if you're dealing with you're like, no, I'm gonna steady the ship. Not everyone's ready for that. Mm-hmm. They're not. I mean, we had that at the business. They'd come in, they're like, all freaked out about COVID. They're all freaked out about what's going on in the country with what we dealt with this last 12 months. And if you're like, yeah, no, it's, you're either laid back, you start giving your opinion, or you're like, with all due respect, this is what I think. Not everyone wants to have that when their world's shattered, and you're trying to keep things afloat, and you're bailing out that water. You're trying to hold that, you're trying to, you're in that canoe or whatever, and the other person's kind of looking around like, oh my God, they're panicking. You're like, just stay still. Mm-hmm. And you're holding the sides. It doesn't do anything when you're holding the sides of a canoe. God damn, you're not going to balance it out. No one's that fucking strong. You know what I mean? If they're going to look over, they're going to tip the boat, right? Yeah. So you're trying to do all that stuff. You're like, no, it's fine. Just sit back down. Like, we're good. We're good. We're going to get through this. Like, it's just a couple little rapids. Like, we're fine. And they're like, no, we're not. I've never seen this before. And all of a sudden it's like, and you're in the water. Mm-hmm. So sometimes your consistency, or your consistent behavior, or you're trying to be steadfast, it doesn't always have the approach that you think. So that's where you have to look inward, in my opinion, and really make sure you're doing it for yourself, and hopefully the people on the boat, the business, the relationship, your family. You got to make sure that you are the one that's trying to, regardless or not, if it's going to actually steady the boat, you're holding on to it and saying like, okay, no, we're going to get through this. Talk to me. Let me know what you're dealing with. And they're like, well, how are you so calm? I'm fucking not calm. I'm just trying to stay upright here. I'm trying to survive. Let's not do this. Yeah. You know what I mean? You got to do that. So sometimes that consistency will push people away.
So that other person in the boat's focused on, the rough waters ahead. You're focused on just staying dry. Two different points of focus. Mm-hmm. Like, you're freaking out too, but you're just handling it different. You both see the same challenges ahead, but you're just thinking about it two different ways.
I have a question. My
Shoot.
question
Who's it
is all of you, both of
Okay.
you, anybody,
Everyone out there.
everyone out there. My question is, would you say if you like to help yourself find consistency, find your passion too? Like you could,
How so?
It's going to be a really weird, like I love to golf.
Okay.
I have a passion for it. It's very easy for me to be consistent and go to the driving range every day and play every day if I could, but I find other ways to, obviously not now, it's winter, but like when the weather's good, I'm either out, you've seen me up the street here. There's a big field. I'm chipping golf balls. I'm hitting golf balls. I'm like,
Yeah, with your poor peripheral, I tried to wave at you like 18 times. You just,
Yeah.
you just see me.
yeah. So those
Get your
are
headphones
new
in.
to the podcast. I have no peripheral vision. So the only way I can see these guys is by looking at the screen in front of me. I cannot see
If
them.
I try and give Sean a fist bump,
I can't see that.
He can't see my fist right
Yeah,
here.
so-
and
Look
it's
at the screen. You can see it. He's just
foot away
ignoring
from
you. at this point.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay.
the first time he was on with AJ and told his story, like AJ was trying to give him a fist bump and nothing.
Yeah, I
like
don't-
AJ took offense to it. It's like, no, he can't see. You have to be directly in front of him.
Yeah. So yeah. I had a brain tumor. Quick thing. Brain tumor, optic nerves, no perf.
Brain tumor is not a quick thing, but
But no, just I don't know. It's weird because when I would do that and I'd get that time to be able to go just when I'm hitting golf balls or whatever, it really kind of set me on a path to be more consistent with other things. Like it's almost like you have to have an outlet to go and just whether it's decompress or do what you got to do to help bring you back on track to the consistency that you're trying to fulfill in your life, I guess is how I'm looking at it.
So to that point, though, is that what happened in recent months, in my opinion, when you take the control, one of the nice things about that consistent behavior, the outlets that you're talking about, right? So the thing that you have these outlets, these normal everyday things that you do to have your outlet away from, say, your family or with your family, or you have these things like, think about the things that were taken away, like concerts, mass gatherings, going just out to the restaurant and just not thinking about vacations, all these things that were taken
Even
away.
business travel.
All of those things were changed, and now you have to adapt. And some people like change, most people do not.
Yeah.
Most people do not. So that's where we get into that whole thing with this plowing ahead is, do you plow ahead? That's where it is. Like, these things are out of your control. Do you plow ahead or do you just turtle up?
I think that's something that you personally did great at the shop.
Me?
Yes.
Okay.
Last year at the Tinder Box, I think that's something that you did really well. When the store closed and you were not allowed to have customers in the store anymore, couldn't come in to buy cigars and walk out. Even you couldn't smoke inside. Like you and Brian were still shipping stuff, but you personally were going on social media.
Right. Yeah.
You were putting yourself out there. You were being creative. You were coming up with a different weekly sampler every single week. Like, and that then became a pattern for you. That became something consistently that you were doing because the circumstances had changed. You couldn't do what you had done before.
I loved it.
But you now had to sit, like you said, you didn't turtle up. Some businesses did, and you've talked about that recently on the podcast.
Yeah.
There were some businesses that turtled up and like, we're just gonna, brave the storm and see what happens when we come out of this. You're like, no, I don't want to wait until we're allowed to have people back inside.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to start doing some stuff now in order to make the best of the situation that's before us.
Yeah.
And I think you did an absolutely fantastic job. And
that's when we started StreamYard on this as well.
Exactly.
Like,
and that's when we started StreamYard. And because of StreamYard, look at some of the guests that we've been able to have.
Mm-hmm.
So as I alluded to during the break, one of the things I did, because someone kind of requested it on my post that I made last night on the community page,
Mhm.
you know, I already keep a spreadsheet of the cigars, the whiskey, and the topics that we have.
Right.
But there was someone else that was interested in who our featured guests were and if they were associated with any particular brands or industries. And so I started going back, started with last week's episode, and I added into that spreadsheet, who was the guest? Were they affiliated with another business? So whether it be, say Josh Bentley with Altadis, Rob Wilson with Rocky Patel, Andemic with Watershed, Amy with McClellan's Pub. And so I started working my way back through that list. And all of a sudden I realized, I was like, throughout the course of last year, we've had a lot of guests, even a little more than a year. We've had a lot of guests that were representing a brand or an industry.
Yes.
If I kept going back before that, there wasn't as much of it. So like the first, say, half of the podcast existence, it was more, people that were local, lived in the area and were friends of ours. And, we needed to, we wanted to have a guest other than just you and Jake, someone else to be there and talk with, someone we knew. And then all of a sudden it became more about, getting people from industries on, getting people from Middle West Spirits, from Watershed,
Sure, yeah,
from High Bank, from Rocky Patel, Altadis, CAO. Like that kind of changed the podcast a little bit, even just a little bit before COVID even happened. But then once COVID happened and started doing StreamYard, that's when we got, Alan Rubin on the podcast. That's
from Alec Bradley.
That's when we
Not
got
everyone knows who these people are.
That's when we got Rocky Patel himself
right
on the podcast. And that's when we had the co-founder of Watershed on the podcast. And I remember, when Jake was still a part of the podcast, Jake was trying to get Andemic on, who was working with Wild Turkey at the time. Now she's with Watershed. And now we were then able to get them on remote the first time they were here.
Well, he did some of the legwork on that, right? So
he did.
Put it out there.
Yeah.
Let's not misconstrue that.
No. Jake was trying to get people on. So were you. Like both of you were trying to get people on. Sometimes when you have these reps that are traveling around, it can be a little difficult to get them here in Columbus on a Wednesday to do a podcast.
Yeah, so doing it remotely, it was able to, and you found the people that were hungry. You found people that were like-minded as you, that you bonded with.
Yes.
I don't know if that's where you're getting to, but this is what I'm getting from it. And I'm trying to get this, like, that is something that when you have people around you that are also of like-mindedness, it's important. Because during that time, during the struggles, whatever it might be, you have to surround yourself with people that are either of positive mindset or like-mindedness, and hopefully it is positive. Because the other side of that is that the negative that you were alluding to earlier in this conversation is that if you surround yourself with people and your only consistent group of people are the people that are negative or turtling up or just beating themselves up, they will then pull you down further. You all go down in the quicksand together. So if you're all in the quicksand, you're all fucking dying. If you have the people around you that you're all pulling each other out,
yeah,
and someone's got that stable, footing, now they pull you out. You got that other person who wants to get out of there. You pull them out, all that stuff. These are those moments that you find, and I think that's what we found this last year, that there are people in your life that are no longer in your life on the other side of the struggle, no matter what it is.
Yep.
Because sometimes they don't want to at that moment get out of it. And you're pulling them out of it, or you're like, hey, no, we're going to survive. We're getting out of here. They don't know how to, they don't have the mental capacity at the moment because they are in that quicksand. They can't breathe at that moment. Mm-hmm. So there has to be that point where you want to breathe. You want to continue to get that breath. You want to continue to do that. That's the true thing. When I reflect back at the time you're talking about with these other people that were on the podcast, the other people that were in the businesses, it almost pisses me off sometimes that some of the people that turtled up and they just were like, no, we're going to wait it out. We're going to weather the storm. And then on the other side of it, God bless them. I'm glad they survived. Where other people were struggling to try to survive and they failed. They had to close up their businesses. Their relationships failed. They did all this shit and nothing came of it. You have to hopefully take those lessons and move forward. The people that just sat back and just let it happen don't learn real lessons. So the next time this comes around, they're going to be fucked. Mm-hmm. And I don't wish ill will on any businesses or people or anything like that, but you got to buck up. You got to fucking get in the game. You can't let the other people score and win that game. You can't let other people fight the fight for you. You're like, we're going to sit back. We're going to let this happen. Sometimes that's a good strategy in the short term. But if that's the way that you survive, you don't learn your lesson. And it's frustrating to see that. There were people that were involved in businesses and jobs that they just said that. That's what's going on right now. When people were doing the unemployment thing, they're getting all this extra money. That was that whole thing this last year where people were like, you know what? I don't even want to go back to work because I'm making more money now. It's like, go fuck yourself. You're not supposed to make this money. That's not how it works. Yeah. Get back to fucking work and make less money. That's fine. Or find another job and make more money. This is the way life works. And that's the same thing that happens now. Like, around us in Ohio, and I know some people, not even talking about people that are super close that have been on the podcast, but other people that are, I was talking to someone, another bar that we do business with at the Tinder Box, and he's telling me this guy, I'm not going to name any names, but he's trying to put a schedule together now that we're opening back up to like no curfew. And now he's got these servers and bar staff that are like, well, I don't know if I want to stay until 2 a.m. It's like, Jesus. That's not how this works. This is the job.
Yeah.
All right, go get an office job if you don't want to sling beers. You don't want to like be a bartender. You don't want to be a whatever. No shit, it's like, no, this is it. That free shit that you got, that was temporary. Yep. That wasn't even supposed to happen. And that really frustrates me to a point that I think that you have to realize that if all you do is sit back and let other people handle it, and that's how you handle life, that's not okay. Because you're going to keep taking without the giving, and you're going to lose yourself in that. Because I've seen people in my life that have done this, and I'm not getting specific. I'm not talking about what you might think I'm talking about. People know me. I'm talking about the fact that I've seen this happen with people that, like I had a guy that worked at Filson at Easton, right? It's great store and all that stuff. And he literally was like, yeah, I'm really, really liking, I'm able to go out hunting and all this stuff. This unemployment's really working out. And then he had to go back to work. And he's like, I just really don't want to. And it's like, fuck, no one wants to work. Like, what are we talking about? Like, you're a grown man. Like, you have to get up. You got to go to work. You got to go do this.
Speaking from experience on that, last year when I was working, I got furloughed for a few months. And yeah, I did get that extra money and it was nice. And I remember the day they called me back, it was a shot to the gut, man. Cause you're like, you fall back into you're not doing shit and you're getting paid for it. And you're like, it's easy to fall into that and be like, well, shit, I'm just going to hang out and do whatever. I'm getting paid to do nothing. And then when they bring you back, it is a hard,
it's a harsh reality.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you got to do it. It sucks. You got to take a bite of the shit sandwich and deal with it and eventually get back into your groove. But yeah, I can see where a lot of people could be very like, I don't want to do that.
What I think what's interesting about the analogy,
no one wants to do that.
I think what's interesting about the analogy that you gave about the whole quicksand.
Yeah.
Depending on what side of the quicksand you are,
right?
You have options.
Yeah.
So if you're one of those people that's out of the quicksand and trying to pull someone up, you can either pull that person out. That's one option.
Okay.
Another option is you were like, you know what? You're dragging me down with you. I'm going to let go because I'm going to take care of me because I don't want to go in the quicksand.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you can you let that person pull you into the quicksand.
That's a good point.
Now you're both screwed.
Yeah.
And so, your priority is taking care of you. Like I'm going to, kind of like, again, we've said it so many times recently on the podcast, you're putting your oxygen mask on first.
Yeah.
Then taking care of the other people. But then if you're the person in the quicksand, you can either let that person help you. And there's no shame in accepting help, by the way. Like there are a lot of people out there that have so much pride that they don't want to take help. And we talked a little bit about that a couple weeks ago with the give or take.
Yep.
There are some people that have a pride about them that they have a hard time accepting help, but sometimes that help is, what pulls them out of the quicksand, or they can pull that person into the quicksand with them.
Yeah.
And,
true.
That not only are you screwing yourself, you're screwing the other person.
I'm going to give you guys some love real quick, both of you, in this podcast. Last year, when we were dealing with all this shit and everybody was at home and you couldn't do much, I personally look forward to every Wednesday. First of all, I look forward to every Tuesday because you would have you'd have your specials.
The Tasty Tuesday.
Yeah, and you're like, oh God, what's the specials going to be this week? And I love that. And then,
yeah,
and then
that's what I was alluding to earlier.
Right. And then we would get them, and then Wednesday would be the podcast. But because of your consistency throughout all that, I know it helped me look forward to something every week when there wasn't much to look forward to. And I'm sure it did with all the listeners as well. So thank you.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.
I want to bring up something because a little bit, you alluded to it a little bit, Steve, about the consistency with work. And there's a lot of people that when they start a new position, they start working at such a high level because they want to push themselves. They want to prove themselves, of that position. Over time, though, like that person will kind of start to slow down a little bit. Like they won't be pushing themselves as hard.
Yeah.
There's a lot of businesses out there that have a great understanding of this because, money will only incentivize a person for so long.
Yep.
So that person will bust their tail, and if they don't see any reward from it, like they'll start to slack off a little bit, not push themselves as hard. And then some businesses will sit there and, it could be a little bump in pay, it could be a bonus, or it could just be a recognition. Like you got a little piece of paper, congratulating you on something, but that recognition bumps that person back up into that level of pushing themselves.
That's an attaboy. And I worked for a company for years that had a micromanaging CEO that he would stand over us and question everything we did. And no matter how hard we worked, it was never good enough. And I finally found another job where, it was just a simple, hey man, thanks for getting that done, or great job. And man, my level went straight back up because I went so long for working in a job that it was never good enough to have somebody say good job meant the world to me.
Yes. And sometimes it can be that simple.
Yeah.
Like someone that gives you recognition, and it doesn't even have to be monetary.
Right.
They just sit there and say, hey, you know what? I've noticed that you've been doing a really good job. You've been working hard. And, I want to thank you for that. I want to congratulate you for that. And that kind of gives you a little extra pep in your step.
It can.
So sometimes, you have the ability to positively or negatively impact someone's activity, someone's performance, someone's work, someone's behavior.
Yeah.
Just by throwing in that little compliment. Because statistics show that if you give someone like a pay raise or a promotion, after about 6 months, they'll start slacking off a little bit. Like those first 6 months, they were busting their tail because they want to prove themselves in that position, and they're like, okay, that kind of wore off.
Yeah, so I think there's got to be consistency all around. I mean, it's
have you ever seen that when you were working in your previous industry, Steve? Because I know at one point you were in management with that. Like, did you ever see that happen where like the company gave a bonus or a raise or recognized someone for their work, and all of a sudden that person's work productivity increased?
So I've seen two sides of it, right? So there's something that, when you constantly change your structures, right? So if you're doing something well and you get rewarded from it, and then you're doing not too well, but it's like, all right, so now we got to change, it's like, so you're busting your ass and all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, but the consistency on the other side is that you are to a point where, okay, yeah, it's what have you done for me lately, right? So this is now, that's sales, right? That's typically sales.
I see that all the time.
Yeah, but that's the job. Sometimes I think that when you're busting your ass and all you get is, okay, you did well. Now we're going to raise your quota. Now we're going to raise this expectation. There is a way to be consistent on that. And I saw that from both sides of it. So there's two sides of this. I will say that with the business, and this can translate, I think, to personal relationships. You're doing your job, you're doing everything you can, and it's great. And you're hitting that. And then all of a sudden the company's like, yeah, that's great. But wouldn't it be cool if we do this? Like, and they just make something up. You're like, well, no, you trained me to do this, and we want to do growth. And next year I'm going to do growth, and we have to have steady growth, because if we do too dramatic of a growth, we're not going to. You've trained me this way that we're not going to have healthy growth. You're going to get overwhelmed. You're going too crazy at that point. So I can do all that stuff, and now I'm not going to get rewarded at all. So now I'm getting a pay cut because I'm not. You just made it unrealistic when you're budgeting this. The other side of it is from the management side, and you get this from relationship wise, is sometimes it's like, well, I did all this stuff and you didn't even say thank you. And you're like, yeah, that's just the relationship. You're right. I should say thank you more. I had this from the business side in my past, is that, someone was just like, well, you're not even like rewarding me anymore for what I'm doing. And it's like, no, I am. That's what, like, there's this, I love this scene in Mad Men. If you guys ever watched Mad Men, it was like, and sometimes I took it maybe to the extreme. It's like, they were like, well, I do all this, I bust my ass and all this stuff, and you just don't even say thank you. You don't like appreciate me. And it's like, that's what the money's for. That was Don Draper, right? Like, that's what, like, you're like salespeople. It's like, I didn't take anything away. You got paid more. That's the relationship. From business aspect, it's like, I didn't change my behavior towards you. You bust your ass. You got paid more. I said thank you. Or like, what do you want?
Do you want to make less and me compliment you more?
Sometimes people want to be appreciated more than I don't want to say they deserve, but it's like something that's like, you have to communicate. You can't wait until it's too late. You're like, well, you never said thank you, and I want to make more money. It's like, cool. Well, you knew the arrangement when we walked into this. You came to us for a job. This was the pay structure, and that's the consistency. Now you want something different. You want to do your own thing. That's fine. Go start your own moving company. Go start your own, electric company. Go start your own aviation company. So go start whatever you want to do. If you think you can do it better, that's fine. Yeah. You were fine, and all of a sudden it got in your head that you want more than the consistent, up and up and up and up, and you're getting rewarded for that. Now all of a sudden you're getting to that point where now you want the world handed to you, and you think that you should be doing my job. That's not how this works.
Since you kind of touched on personal relationships a little bit, since we just had Valentine's Day, I'm gonna kind of turn to that a little bit, because there's a lot of people I see when it comes to Valentine's Day, like spouses. Let's say guys, guys on Valentine's Day, they buy flowers or chocolates and whatever. Guys spend like twice as much on Valentine's Day as women do. But the problem is, how often are you showing that kind of affection and appreciation? Like, if all you're doing is showing it on Valentine's Day or your anniversary, like, what's the other 363 days of the year?
Freaking Hallmark holiday, man.
Well, you go broke if you're going to do the same, like Valentine's Day 365.
But that's
I'll tell you that right now.
But that's the thing. Like, if you do little things to show appreciation, and they don't even have to be monetary. That's a great thing.
Clean the house, you get laid.
Exactly. You clean the house, you do dishes, you do the laundry, you do all this little shit around the house and stuff, and you do it on a consistent basis.
Yep.
Then when those Hallmark holidays, as you called it, Sean, pop up, like, they don't necessarily carry the same weight, because if you sit there and all you do is, like, buy the person chocolates and they happen to love chocolates, the person's not sitting there going, well, what the hell else have you done? Here you go. Here's like everything else I've done. Like, I've made it a habit to support you and take care of you and show you how much I care about you.
Yeah.
In all these other ways. throughout the entire year.
Much more important.
I'm just doing a little bit extra because of this particular day. But if you don't do anything throughout the whole year, you know, so one person so let's say Sean, you know, does stuff around the house all year long and then does something a little bit extra on Valentine's Day, like that's going to look good.
Sure.
You're going to get points for that.
Yep.
If Sean does absolutely nothing throughout the entire year to help out and then buys chocolates on Valentine's Day, that same exact gift doesn't carry quite as much weight because you haven't done shit throughout the rest of the time.
Line up your goals. I'll say this. Line up your goals, because this is something that I will look at this is that you guys talk about that stuff. And I've heard this and I know that. Same thing with like the business world as well. You have to line up your goals. You have to most successful sports teams, you know your roles. You agree upon it. I am all for going above and beyond, and sometimes life gets in the way. This last year was definitely one of those years that the life got in the way. And I will tell you this, is that you need to realize and you have to communicate at all times with that significant other. You talk about Valentine's Day and all that. I will say this about that is that sometimes there are things that you are bringing to the table that you think should be appreciated and isn't.
Ooh.
And the other people on the other side of it, they want you to do other things, but they don't fucking tell you.
Oh,
so
God.
Now you're communicating. Now you have aligned goals. So there are times where the biggest failures in any relationship, business, romantic, otherwise, friendship or anything, is when they say, I wish you would have done this. Well, you fucking should have told me.
Yep.
Because if you don't communicate your quotas in business, you don't communicate the fact that you didn't clean around the coffee machine after you used it. If you expect the other person to read your mind, it is a failure waiting to happen.
That's kind of something that
well said.
That kind of ties into last week. Do what you say what you do, or do what you say. Say what you mean.
Yep, there you go.
Do what you say. And one of the things that my wife had actually texted me because she watches on YouTube, so she doesn't really comment on the Facebook feed.
Right.
But that's one of the things that she had texted me, and I brought it up in one of my interjections last week, was to be unclear is to be unkind.
Yes.
So if you don't tell someone, so like you brought up, you know, just for example, cleaning around the coffee machine.
Right.
So if you get mad at someone because they don't clean around the coffee machine, then tell them, hey, while you're at it, could you clean around the coffee machine? Otherwise, you're getting pissed at them for something they didn't even know they were supposed to do.
Look, you know,
you're getting mad at them for a problem they didn't even know existed.
Right. Ian says wants and needs, got to know those and put them out there. This is something that when you're talking about like the consistent behavior, sometimes you think you're doing well or the other person thinks they're doing well and you have not communicated to a point. And there's a part of me that like I look, there's like 5 viewers right now. And it's like I like that because I feel a little bit more free saying this because I don't know who's listening. But I wish there were more people listening to this because I think that there's some important shit going on right now is that you have to make your goals or your needs, wants and needs, as he says, business or especially personal relationships, you have to make them known.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you stop communicating those, and also things that you're doing that you think the other person may be or the business is appreciating, and you find out that they could care fucking less about what you just did for the last 6 months of your life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're going into work. I show up early. I stay late. I do all this stuff. I clean around the coffee machine. It's on blind eyes and deaf ears. They don't even care about that. That's not what their mindset is. I think that's one of those things in a personal relationship. You feel like you're doing these things too. Getting smoky in here.
It's just 3 of us. It's all right.
But I think if you don't even communicate what you think, hey, I'm doing this for the business, I'm doing this for the household, I'm doing these things, and they may not even realize why you're doing those things.
Right.
This all comes back to communication. I think that consistent behavior, going back to the topic at hand and plowing ahead, these are those moments that if only you sit down with all parties involved and you have that meeting and say, all right, where are we going?
Yeah.
What do you like? What do you don't like? Ian says wants and needs. I still have it up on the screen. Wants and needs. Got to know what those are and put them out there. These are some of those moments that could be missed and are missed very, very frequently, that you're not on the same page anymore. So your consistent behavior that you think is doing well for you and everyone involved is falling on deaf ears. And vice versa. What they think they're doing, and you're just like, yeah, I'm annoyed too. I feel like you're not doing this. I feel like you're not doing enough here. I feel like I'm doing everything. It's like you have to have those conversations. Mm-hmm. But if you bring it back to yourself, we go back in the conversation of health and fitness, and health is a big one. Mental health.
Yep.
This was, I think, the big loss of for a lot of people this last year, and it's going to continue to be so. I look at the generation that's coming up that were, how old's Molly?
Should be 13 in like
13.
3 weeks.
So 8 to 15-year-old kids that are going through this pandemic with us. Are you being consistent with what you know to be true to lifelong success? Or are you just coping and letting them cope? This is okay. This is the new norm. You don't have to go out and see people. You need to stay away. You need to do all this stuff. Is this what is important? What's the priority here? And Sean, you're a dad.
Yep.
So I have a nephew that was afraid to be around people this last year because he thought he was going to get him sick.
Right.
10 years old.
Wow.
Think about what you learned when you were 10.
Nothing like this.
So now, going back, it's get outside, go play with kids, go socialize, go do things. Now it's stay away, put a mask on, do not touch anything, sanitize your fucking entire body before you actually get within 6 feet of someone.
We've been with Molly. She has a lot of friends. She goes to Westerville schools, and we're kind of outside of Westerville, but she has a lot of friends that live in Westerville. And over the summer, we've taken her to friends with their bike, and they've been, riding around their bikes, playing on a park, doing things outside. Obviously, she'd be wearing a mask. So we try to encourage that part. We didn't want her to fall into the sit in your bedroom all day long and watch videos. And, now it's kind of hard not to do that because of the weather and the way that, just the way this time of year. And she's,
it's funny you say that, because what was your big shortcoming that you talked about? Going in your room and watching videos and watching.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ironic.
A little bit. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that.
I'm pointing out the obvious that not everyone sees.
Yeah. No.
So consistency is long term. This is a lifetime thing. So you have to look at this, is that you have to push people away. You got pushed away from doing that.
Yep. And
then you tell your kids, not you, but everyone, telling your kids, go to your room, watch Netflix, get on Zoom calls, and then stay to yourself.
Right.
And then you do it, and you're like, well, I'm fucking up everything.
You're passing consistency on generationally.
Not you personally, Sean, but I'm saying that's what people did.
He said it that way. No, I'm kidding.
Sean, you fucked. No.
No. It's this time of year. It sucks. I mean, it's freaking cold. It's snow. And, we try to find times where we can do things together as a family. It's few and far between this time of year. And whether it's COVID or not, it's just living in Ohio during this time. Everybody, if you go around this neighborhood, you don't see anybody for a period of 4 or 5 months because everyone's hibernating right now. But when the weather does break, we're outside, we are doing things, we are, taking the dog. Well, we still take dogs out, but we're always trying to find something fun to do outside. And I love the fact that my daughter does that. When the weather gets nice, she can't wait for the weather to get nice to be able to ride her bike again. And I love that about her and wanting to do that, because there are a lot of kids these days that even in the summertime will stay in their room and not leave their room for days at a time.
What'd you do on a snow day?
On a snow day?
When you had a snow day, what'd you do?
I go sledding.
Goddamn right.
And we'd take her sledding. There's a little hill right over here. We try to do sledding as much as we can.
Get outside.
Yep. Hell yeah, man. We would walk a mile to the best sledding hill and to find it. When we were kids.
I'm saying do not let that that you're describing, in my opinion, is like stay home, like don't do these things. Like that's why I bring that up. What did you do on a snow day when you were a kid? You went outside, you fucking were like bundled up, and you got yelled at because well, I have to pee. We just put that snowsuit on. Like goddamn, well, I mean, I want to go outside, and you just took like 20 minutes to get me ready to go outside.
It takes you 20
I
minutes.
asked you if you had to pee before I put you in that. It's like going on a road trip. You said no, I didn't have to pee then. Now I have to. But you just go through it. You get outside. You keep doing things. That's what I'm like. Do not let these outside factors contain what you want to do. Your consistency.
Well,
don't let the weather. You want to go out and I appreciate what you're saying because I'm the same way. Like I don't want to go do things outside in this cold weather. I'd much rather stay in the house or just like do something with people like inside. But now you can't do that. So what's the damaging effect by allowing the outside factors like seasonal depression? And why do you think you get seasonal depression? Because it's fucking gray and cold and it's dark early and it's dark late in the morning. Like, do it. Get out there. Go do something.
That's one of the reasons why there's so many people right now in our current climate advocating for schools to reopen because they recognize that school-age kids need that social interaction because they're losing something valuable if they're just staying at home doing Zoom learning. Like, there's a very important aspect to life in general by them hanging out with other kids and other people and playing. And that's one of the things like we did even on a snow day.
Yeah.
Like we still got together and went sledding. We didn't go to school, but we still, those that were close to us, we hung out together because that social interaction was important.
Yeah.
Because there's a value to that social interaction.
Yeah. All right. Closing remarks. We're getting to that point on part 2 here. Nate.
So
before you do that, I'm going to thank our sponsors, Tinder Box at Easton, Altadis USA, and BS Cigar Company, and also patreon.com/Bourbon and BS Podcast. Guys, I hope you enjoy this. I know late in the evening, it's not as many people listening. I got to be honest. I think that, not only maybe they don't want to hear what we have to say, but having less viewers right now, I think it's what we're talking about right now is that people are now in Eastern Standard Time. It's after 10 o'clock, and people are just ready to call it a day and start up tomorrow for another day of this.
Yep.
So, again, this is an opportunity for you guys to do things and contribute to a conversation that you may not be, Netflix only goes so far. Hulu only goes so far. I mean, they've got all these streaming services. Turn it off for a minute.
Yep.
Talk to people. Go ahead, Nate.
So, I mean, we've talked a lot about consistency of self-accountability. I think one of the things that sometimes we overlook is having an accountability partner.
Yep.
And I think that can be something that helps you develop consistency. Because there's a lot of times, or a lot of aspects of life, I should say, whether it be fitness, nutrition, work, relationships, whatever it is. Sometimes it's hard for us to bear the sole responsibility of taking that accountability or of developing the consistency.
Right.
Sometimes what really helps is having someone to hold you accountable to that. So if it's fitness, like we were talking about walks, it's someone who's like, hey, I didn't see you post any pictures of your walk. Did you actually take a walk today? Or even more specific, I didn't see you post a picture of you smiling today. Did you actually smile?
Right.
That can have a huge impact, is just smiling for the camera for that instance. When it's relationships, the good thing about relationships is there is another person involved. So it's very easy to have someone hold you accountable. As long as that person's willing to actually play a role in that.
Not always.
Not every relationship has that person that's going to help you. When it comes to business, have that person there who is like, hey, do you need any help today? How are things going? Are you getting burned out? Do you need help? Have that person within your group, within your circle, help, be there to help push you forward.
Yeah.
I have a coworker who is newer on our team, and they know the role, they know what to do. They're my main go-to person when I'm on vacation, because the sales rep that I support responsible for 30% of the opportunities that we did last year. And yet the newest person on the team is the person that they, trusted the most of who helped me previously to be there if I wasn't there. But yet that person, is having another coworker who doesn't like, the fact that, maybe they're not doing things according to their schedule. It's like, no, you're doing fine. You're doing you. Like, I'm going to help you realize, like, you're getting down. I'm going to help you realize, like, you're doing just fine.
Okay.
That person's being a dick. You're doing just fine. And, just some, like you've talked about, if someone in the area wants to go on a walk, like, all right, here's when I go on a walk. If you want to do it, you can join me.
Yeah.
If you don't want to do it, that's fine. But if you want to, I'm there for you. And I think sometimes not only being consistent for yourself, but being there for someone to help them be consistent is important. But also, if you struggle at consistency, reach out to someone and ask them. They don't even necessarily have to be the person that does it, but help them or have them help you be accountable.
Yeah. Sean, go ahead.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that's helped me for consistency and that just kind of came to mind is that the best way to become more consistent is to be in the present. I think a lot of times people look too far ahead of, all right, I got to be consistent with this. And when you look too far ahead, that will either make you worry or not, it'll start having an impact on becoming possibly more consistent. By taking it one day at a time or staying in the present, I think that allows you to focus on that day and not worry so much about, you have a goal where you need to be that way, but don't try to worry about something that may or may not happen.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. Worry about today. What is it that I need to work on being consistent about? All that matters is today. All that matters is right now. Nothing else matters. And then when tomorrow hits, we worry about tomorrow, but try not to look too far in the future.
Yeah. Who are you holding accountable? That's a question for both of you.
That's a good question.
In your everyday life, who are you holding accountable? Today, when you woke up, when like we talk about that stuff, we talk about, like, Nate, you mentioned, like I have people, I've mentioned it, about the walk, about like my focus thing, about being happy, and you never know who you are a pillar for.
Yeah.
So who are you holding accountable, Nate, today?
Well,
today.
If we're
day's almost over. So this day right now, Whiskey Wednesday, who did you hold accountable today?
If we're talking about relationships, obviously it's going to be my wife.
Okay. Who else?
If we're talking about work, it's going to be my coworkers.
Okay. Who else?
I don't know anyone else.
Okay. So wife and coworkers. I know
last night when you and I were at the shop, we talked a little bit about what were the odds that either one of us would be taking a walk this morning, because it was going to be 1 degree
right
this morning.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you took a walk or not. I didn't see any pictures.
I did not.
I
said I wasn't.
But then again, I wasn't going to, because of the circumstances, I wasn't going to sit there and beat you down
No. It's not about that.
Because you didn't.
I'm asking who you held accountable. Sean, how about you?
I held myself accountable.
That's
I at least got up because even though I didn't take a walk this morning,
that's a good one.
I still got up at the exact same time as if I was going to take a walk, and I went and shoveled the driveway in lieu of taking a walk because I didn't want to try and smoke a cigar at 1 degree and have to keep pulling my mask down.
Okay, Sean, how about you? Who'd you hold accountable today?
My wife, kind of like following the same lines as Nate's. My wife and my daughter. And then myself, today at work, it was a little slow today. So there was a chance that they were like, hey, you can go home early if you want, because it's really slow. And it was easy for me to say, okay, later, I'm going.
Okay.
But I didn't. I stayed. I knew it was important. I needed to be there to stay longer to, help the other people that I was working with to make the load less heavy and, just help them through the day.
Was it so much to help the other people or because of, you being hourly and making
a little bit of both? I mean, it was a paycheck, but it's also like, I just felt like I'm very team oriented when it comes to working with people and it is a team. And
so your focus is more on a team, not necessarily yourself.
Well, it's a little bit of both though. I mean, it was like, yeah, I do need to stay not just for the team, but also I also knew for my personal health, fitness wise, for some reason, we had about 200 Nordic tracks that we were offloading and they were 250 pounds a piece. So that was a hell of a workout today, I'm gonna tell you, but it was,
you look great.
Thank you. But it was a little bit of both, I guess. It was like helping other people, holding each other accountable to make sure we're getting it done and then making sure that I'm, pulling my weight and making sure that I'm getting, making an impact on, getting the job done as well. So that's, I guess, the deal.
Okay.
What about you?
Yeah.
So you keep
you asked, you brought it up.
Yeah. I think everyone has expectations. I think this is something that there's one person at this table at the very least that, based on my expectations now, I hold Nate accountable that he's going to be here. Something comes up, it's fine. You know what I mean? But you hold people, it's a consistent behavior. There's always that. There's people in your life that you can rely on. Now, if they can't follow through, that's okay.
Just communicate it.
Communicate. And if it's holding people accountable doesn't always mean that you will live and die by that, right? Shit happens and people will have shortcomings, but you hold people accountable. So Nate, I was expecting you to be here tonight, and you were, right? Sean, you sit in the audience a lot. You weren't planning on being on the podcast in part 2. You were here because this is an outlet for you. I've said it before, is that one thing that I do is, the only reason I have not been on this podcast was most of the time was weather, or I had COVID. The one turned out to be COVID not too long ago. And then I also made a choice and I communicated the fact that I wasn't going to be on the podcast.
Or the 1 week you were in Cuba.
No, I was in.
No, you were in the DR.
I was hammered going to Cuba that morning afterwards. DR was the one, and but there was also a time I didn't do the podcast is because I took a personal choice because of what was going on in my life, and I held myself accountable. And I made that choice. Mm-hmm. But you got to start with yourself. You always have to hold yourself accountable. This isn't meant to be a negative, but sometimes when you're consistent, you will alienate other people that aren't. You've heard that saying that it is lonely at the top. And I'm not talking about myself, but sometimes when you think you are doing things for the greater good, you will find yourself alone. So the consistency is that you need to adapt and listen to the people that are important to you. Surround yourself with positive people. Mm-hmm. Keep taking those strides. The walks are about taking those, step by step, moving forward. sometimes people will back away. They don't want to go out in the cold, right? So let's talk metaphor, right? They don't
That
want to go out in the
quicksand
cold.
that we talked about earlier.
There's a quicksand. This is a moment that when you hold yourself accountable, when I ask that question, obviously the first person you hold accountable is yourself. You hold other people that are important to you in your life, that you hold them accountable. But when we talk about consistency and plowing ahead, is that there are times where you do what you think is right, and you might be right, and you keep moving forward, because it can be the case that people fall off as you are striving forward to the greater good. Go ahead. This is how closing remarks go.
Yeah, sorry. One more thing. On your path of being consistent, if you fall, if you fail, if you take a day where you're not, don't let it define your path on still becoming more consistent.
Don't let that be a negative consistency.
Right. Just, it's so easy to fall off. And I think that's for me. And I'm saying this because I've done it. I've dealt with it. I've had that issue. And just by listening to be a part of this podcast is teaching me that, there's going to be days where you don't go for a walk, but you know what? I bet you tomorrow you're going to get up and you're going to go for that walk.
Yeah, there are times where you're going to have to be there for other people, right? And it sacrifices your side of things. But do not lose yourself in it.
Right.
And I've done it. We've all done it. Anyone listening has done it. You have to keep that balance. You have to keep moving towards your greater good. Be selfish at times.
Yeah.
Well, I think that alludes to the part of the topic that we didn't necessarily
This is how closing remarks
that
go.
we didn't necessarily touch on a whole
By
lot.
the time I get to my closing remarks, I bring up new things, and then it's like, yeah, we have another 15 minutes. Go ahead, Nate.
No, it was the part of the topic that we didn't really touch on a whole lot, was the pushing through.
Plowing ahead.
Yes.
Pushing through, plowing ahead because we're all dealing with snow right now and snow plows and
Sure.
But yeah, I mean that's kind of what you're talking about is doing the right thing consistently, even though others around you may not be following along with you. You're still going. You're still holding yourself accountable in order to plow ahead and hit that goal.
So with that said, I will say this as we exit out stage left. There is that other saying that at first they're going to ask you why you're doing it. Does anyone know what the follow-up question is later in life?
How'd you do it?
That's it. So they will ask you, bonus points for Nate. As you're doing things to benefit you, no matter what it is, health, mental health, it's all about health. It's always like you're making more money and they're like, well, why are you doing this? Why are you taking these steps? I don't get it. Financially, relationship-wise, personally, health, any of these things. Why are you eating that way? Why are you doing these things? Why are you taking more time for yourself? Why are you doing these consistent behaviors? I don't understand. And you tell them why. You're like, okay, cool. Good luck. And then you have the success. You lose the weight. You get in shape. You have financial success. You have this business or romantic success. And they're like, how'd you do it? First, they're going to ask you why you're doing this. And then they're going to ask you, how'd you do it?
Right.
You should have listened up. Or listen up now. And again, sometimes you do these things and it's not the outcome that you think was going to happen. You may have lost people. You may have changed jobs. You may have lost a house, gained a house, got a bigger house, had to sell your car. You had to stop talking to this friend. You got new friends. That old friend came back and now you're even closer. Just fucking do it. But you got to start with yourself. And by doing that, it's not always learning from yourself. It's about the fact that you have to look at people or situations that now you're that person that was asking, why are you doing this? I don't get it. That's not going to work out. I don't understand. And then you see them months later, years later. How'd you do it? Open your fucking ears. Because at some point you might learn from your peers that you weren't listening to before because you didn't believe in them, or you might actually believe in yourself and all of a sudden other people are believing in you because of the consistency of the behavior, and you plowed ahead while all of them were waiting for the streets to be plowed, metaphor, right? Or you waited just to be like, I'm going to turtle up and wait for this to pass. Cool. Enjoy your time at home. But I'm going to keep doing this. And hopefully someday, whether you're with me or not, you found your own plow. You found your own way, your own path.
Find your own plow.
Find your own plow. It's a t-shirt right there. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen that are listening out there, thank you for tuning in tonight. Cedar Creek Cigars, Tinder Box at Easton, Altadis USA, BS Cigar Company, and patreon.com/Bourbon and BS Podcast. You guys are awesome. I appreciate all the support and everything else. I hope you guys can join us in the garage, or at the very least virtually in the garage, and keep plowing ahead and be consistent. Cheers.
Cheers.